The scene opens with pure magical chaos. A powerful mage unleashes a devastating spell, only for another mage to effortlessly block it for his entire party. With absolute confidence, the attacking mage declares the battle finished and raises his wand toward the dungeon's final guardian, the Labyrinth Master himself. He channels his energy and releases a colossal beam of destruction that tears through the air. The Labyrinth Master desperately conjures 3 massive magic circles as shields, but they're nothing against this overwhelming power. The beam shatters through each barrier like glass and obliterates the boss in a blinding explosion that rocks the entire chamber. But then reality shifts. This wasn't some epic real-world conquest, it was just a video game. Our protagonist has successfully cleared the brutal dungeon master difficulty in Abyss of the Labyrinth. He leans back in his chair with the most satisfied stretch imaginable, celebrating his hard-earned victory. He admits the game gets absolutely ruthless at higher difficulties, but choosing a mage as his main character proved to be the perfect strategy. The difficulty he just dominated is called Turn-Based Master, and he's already thinking about uploading a strategy guide for other players struggling with this nightmare mode. Then something catches his attention on screen. The game asks if he wants to attempt the final difficulty tier developer mode. Without hesitation, he accepts the challenge. The game immediately warns him that he must select a special ability, something only unlocked by conquering turn-based master difficulty. He's never encountered this ability before, but figures if it's terrible, he'll simply reroll his character. Naturally, he's sticking with his mage class. His character's name is Kalium, and he dumps all 10 stat points directly into intelligence, leaving every other attribute at 0. The moment he clicks start, his screen transforms into what can only be described as the world's brightest flashbang. But it doesn't stop there. An intense blue light erupts from his computer and floods his entire apartment. He screams as someone's voice cuts through the chaos, commanding him to wake up. His eyes snap open to find a man gripping his collar, calling him a criminal and demanding he snap out of whatever delusion he's trapped in. Confused, our protagonist questions whether this stranger is actually talking to him. He insists this must be some vivid dream because he's done nothing criminal. His entire life has been gaming. The man laughs at his confusion before violently throwing him to the floor. He coldly suggests it's better to lose his mind now rather than later, since death is inevitable anyway. Our protagonist struggles to process what's happening. This has to be a dream, yet the pain feels disturbingly real, and the vividness of everything is beyond anything he's experienced. A commanding figure stands before an enormous gate, addressing a crowd of people. He announces that everyone has been given a magic wand and explains their grim situation. They've all been enslaved for their crimes, and the labyrinth before them represents their one chance at changing their fate. If they manage to survive and escape, they can use the money earned inside the maze to purchase their freedom. Those who succeed will even have the opportunity to enroll in the prestigious Magic Academy. Our protagonist looks down at his hands in shock, realizing this is straight out of Abyss of the Labyrinth. There's no possible way he's actually been transported into the game itself. The mage continues his announcement, explaining that everyone will descend into the labyrinth in assigned groups. As our protagonist processes this information, he confirms that this is indeed the character he just created, Kalium. If this truly is the labyrinth from the game, then any monster they encounter will be absolutely brutal. He needs to figure out his situation immediately and assess the abilities of those entering with him. He turns to observe his party members when one of them suddenly declares that everyone should remain calm because a divine prophecy just revealed they're all going to die. The guy is completely delusional. We'll call our protagonist Kalium until we learn his real name. He can't believe everyone is already losing their composure. Kalium tries to rally them, insisting they need to stay focused. If they remain calm and move carefully while searching for an exit, they can survive this. One of the group members, let's call him Orchop, starts running in absolute panic, screaming that they need to escape immediately. Kalium wonders what possessed him to suddenly bolt like that. Then blood erupts into the air. Everyone freezes as they watch the fleeing man get impaled by 2 spears. The entire group becomes anxious as they identify their attacker, a goblin. The delusional prophet claims he told them exactly this would happen, while an elf girl in their party starts hyperventilating. Before the prophet can continue his rant, a spear takes his head clean off. The goblin starts drooling as it locks eyes on the terrified elf girl, who falls backward onto the floor in pure terror. Kalium realizes the situation is deteriorating fast as more goblins begin charging toward them. He accepts that he can't avoid this confrontation. As 2 goblins leap at him simultaneously, he braces for what seems like certain death. There's no way he can dodge. But then his special ability activates. The hourglass of turns freezes time for 60 seconds during 1 turn, granting him 4 action points. The ability automatically triggers in critical situations. His pupils transform to display hourglass symbols along with his action point count. The status window confirms it's his turn with 60 seconds on the clock. Time completely stops around him, and Kalium struggles to comprehend what's happening. He suspected his ability would involve time manipulation based on its name, but he never imagined it would be this overwhelmingly powerful. Now that he has a full minute to think, he can strategize properly. First, he raises his wand to block an incoming blade, consuming 1 action point. He realizes at this rate, he won't have enough points left to dodge or defend against everything. He lets out a sigh, forcing himself to focus completely. Then something clicks. Why did that sigh not consume an action point? The system recognizes it as chat input rather than a combat action. Understanding the mechanic, Kalium knows exactly what he must do. He raises his wand again, spending another action point with only 6 seconds remaining. He aims at both goblins simultaneously, and with 5 seconds left, the countdown continues as he uses his final action point. He screams "Fireball!" and with all action points depleted, his turn ends. The hourglass ability enters a 60-second cooldown, an incredibly broken mechanic. Fire begins forming at the tip of his wand, and just as the goblins are about to strike him down, he releases an absolute pillar of flames that completely obliterates both creatures. The elf stands speechless while Kalium stares at the scorch marks burned into the ground. The reality of what just happened hits him hard. He starts hyperventilating, questioning what he did to deserve this nightmare. He nearly died for absolutely no reason, like some nameless casualty. If this world truly follows the same rules as the game regarding mages, then nobody possesses more knowledge than him. There's no telling how long finding the exit will take, so his priorities are clear. First, he needs to farm experience and resources, then find reliable teammates. As he searches through the corpses, he turns to the elf girl and asks what spell is embedded in her wand. She reveals it's lightning shock, though she's never actually used magic before. He tells her it's better than nothing, and that she'll have to use it whether she's practiced or not. If a monster charges her, she cannot hesitate to fire. They need to find the exit gate together. He makes a silent vow regardless of whether it was a developer or God who dumped him into this hell. He will survive and escape. The narrative shifts to provide crucial lore about this world. Several years ago, the labyrinth erupted and monsters poured out from its depths, covering the surface. Countless adventurers and mages perished trying to contain the threat. To train new mages and explore the labyrinths, authorities began throwing in slaves, raising those who survived, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. That's essentially the background of the game. Kalium acknowledges there's no guarantee everything he knows is accurate, so caution is essential. The elf thanks him for allowing her to accompany him, introducing herself as Urinal. He dismisses her gratitude as unnecessary and tells her his name is Kalium. An awkward silence hangs between them before she comments on how calm and quiet he seems now. On the slave transport ship, he apparently talked extensively with other prisoners. This observation catches him completely off guard. He didn't expect to encounter people who knew the original Kalium before he took over this body. He needs to be far more careful going forward. Urinal shares her backstory. She used to live in the fairy forest and got a job at a package delivery center. It turned out the center was distributing illegal substances disguised as packages. She was framed for the operation, couldn't afford the fine, and was forced into slavery. Kaliam understands she's talking excessively because she's terrified. He's about to respond when he notices her step on something and immediately tells her to stop moving. She's activated a pressure plate. His hourglass ability triggers, giving him 4 moves and confirming it's his turn. He checks whether he also stepped on a trap. With a full minute to analyze, he forces himself to stay calm and examine his surroundings. First floor traps typically involve projectiles shooting from walls. Fortunately, there are no holes on Urinal's side where anything could launch. He inspects his own side. It's wasteful to use action points for this, but necessary. Finding nothing there either, he looks up and confirms the ceiling is clear, meaning this must be a floor trap. There are 4 types of floor traps on the first level. First, rising spike traps that pierce vertically through the floor to crush feet. Second, exploding nail bomb traps with wide blast radiuses that would seriously injure both of them. Third, poison gas or sleep gas traps that would leave them as monster food. Fourth, pit traps that drop victims to the second floor completely unavoidable. Since the hourglass activated, there's definitely a threat to him as well. While he can rule out the spike trap, there's insufficient time to prepare for the others. As the timer counts down, frustration builds. If she lifts her foot, she'll trigger the trap, so he needs to step on it as well to prevent her from moving. He stomps down using his last action point, exhausting all his moves and ending his turn. She continues her forward momentum and trips over him, falling forward. As she tumbles, she demands to know what he's doing. He explains she stepped on a trap that explodes the moment pressure is released, so he stepped on it to prevent the trigger. She panics, asking what they should do now. He asks if she remembers the oak barrel they passed earlier. She confirms she does, and he requests she go retrieve it. She agrees and runs off. He thinks about how disastrous it would be if she encounters another trap on the way. These types of traps can be neutralized by placing a heavy object on them. He just needs to wait about 10 minutes. But 30 minutes pass, and growing concern sets in. There's no way she triggered another trap, right? Maybe she encountered monsters. Perhaps it was crazy to step on the trap for her. He should have been more selfish. But then he hears her panting as she returns with the barrel, apologizing for the delay. It was just incredibly heavy. He praises her effort and instructs her to place it on the tile where he's standing. She complies, and once they're at a safe distance, he explains he needs to switch to his telekinesis magic wand first. There might be unexpected additional traps, so checking is essential. He uses telekinesis to move the barrel, and a massive explosion erupts, sending a powerful gust of wind throughout the room. He confirms they can proceed now, relieved the trap was exactly what he predicted. Now he's worried about both monsters and traps. Dealing with both simultaneously will be incredibly challenging. However, there's significant hope since he has the initiative advantage with his hourglass ability. Since it's still the first floor, his 10 intelligence points should be sufficient. He needs to confirm whether he can activate the hourglass at will and whether magic casting consumes action points. A goblin appears ahead, and he recognizes this as the perfect opportunity to test his abilities. The goblins spot them and start grinning, thinking they've found easy prey. The hourglass activates as Kaliam casts Fireball, consuming 1 action point. The spell also enters a 5-second cooldown, and time remains frozen while the spell chants. The timer counts down, and he casts another Fireball, using another action point. He calculates that these 2 should be more than enough and ends his turn. Both fireballs fly down the hallway and explode on the goblins, burning them to ash. Theoretically, he can fire 4 fireballs in a single turn. Urinal is shocked, suggesting he possesses both ultra-high speed casting talent and chantless casting ability. He asks if that's genuinely impressive. She confirms that even having just one of those talents would make someone exceptional. She laments being weak and unable to use magic properly, believing she's useless and causes nothing but trouble. Maybe she should try using that bow on the ground. Kaliam considers this. She's definitely useless as a warrior or mage, but since she's an elf, she should be naturally agile. He asks how far she can jump. She thinks back to her time in the fairy forest, estimating about 4 meters. He's genuinely surprised, realizing her agility must be at least 5 or higher. He tells her to wait while he retrieves the goblin's bow, asking if she'd try using it. She reveals she's actually far more comfortable with a bow since she frequently practiced archery in the forest. This works out perfectly. She can provide support from the rear while he handles magic. She promises to buy time so he can cast comfortably. He ends up collecting everyone's wands, including hers. Suddenly, she hears something, warning that someone is behind them. He quickly turns to check both sides of the hallway but sees nothing, telling her he doesn't see anyone. She insists she's serious and heard a sound from that direction. An idea forms as he tells her to close her eyes for a moment. She wonders why, assuming he needs to relieve himself and saying she understands. He throws some stones instead, asking if she can determine where and how many have fallen. She listens carefully to the sounds, reporting there are about 3 stones, 4 steps away. He confirms his suspicion she possesses the ability to hear and judge positions, called sound mapping in the game. He asks how many people she detects following them. She responds that 4 are quickly approaching. He doesn't know why they're being pursued, but considering worst-case scenarios, facing a party where everyone survived won't be easy. For now, they should hide instead. They start running, and he suggests hiding around the corner to wait until the enemies arrive. They conceal themselves anxiously, wondering if the pursuers will continue. The footsteps grow increasingly louder. Realizing he needs to take action, he steps out and demands to know why they're being chased. Urinal draws her bow as well. One of the men clarifies they have no business with him, but they definitely want the elf girl. They offer a deal: if he hands over the elf, they'll let him live. As Kaliam holds 2 wands aimed at them, the confrontation becomes clear. The leader tells him that low-tier magic won't pierce his shield, and her arrows are like toothpicks. If he tries chanting, an arrow will hit his head first. He shouldn't waste his strength and should just make this easy. They could join forces: 5 men and the elf. They could all take turns with her, asking if that sounds appealing. Urinal calls out to him in panic as they continue, saying it's safer to travel with 4 experienced fighters than relying on 1 elf. He could sleep while she keeps watch, but with them around, he'd never be able to close his eyes. Kaliam tells them absolutely not. He demands they leave unless they want to die. Urinal is excited that he's defending her, while the leader questions if he's joking. Kaliam makes it clear he's completely serious. The man sighs, saying he has no choice, and orders his men to kill Kaliam. As one prepares to release an arrow, the hourglass activates with a full minute on the clock. Kaliam reflects that he clearly gave them a chance. Maybe the dual wands appear as a defensive stance to them, but if that's their assumption, they're gravely mistaken. His foot is positioned in a puddle, and his lightning-type wand will pair perfectly with water. Normally, it can only shock once, but with water conducting electricity, it's a completely different scenario. He casts lightning shock, consuming 1 action point. The spell shoots forward directly toward the group. With time still frozen, he plans the next moves. Once they're electrocuted, they'll drop the shield, allowing him to target them individually. He casts Fireball, taking another action point. He'll shoot the first into the puddle, then aim the next at the bald leader. He raises his wand, using another action point to cast another Fireball. Now out of action points, his turn ends. The dual fireballs and electric shock fly toward the group as they watch in horror. The lightning zaps into the water, electrocuting all 4 men simultaneously. They scream and convulse, dropping their weapons exactly as Kaliam predicted. They helplessly watch as a fireball approaches. It strikes the water, creating thick mist that blocks their vision. In panic, the leader tells everyone to scatter, but the fireball explodes directly on them, sending another shockwave through the tunnel. Kalium tells Urinal to fire. She listens for their movements through the mist before releasing a shot. One of them screams in agony. He explains that with her sound mapping, this is more than sufficient. He urges her to keep shooting, his spell cooldown isn't ready yet, and she needs to eliminate at least one of them. The bald leader probably got hit by the fireball, so he just needs to handle the rest. She fires another shot as his fireball has a 2-second cooldown remaining. 5 seconds feels like an eternity. He directs her to target the warrior first, he's almost ready. She responds with confusion, revealing she already got all of them. He's stunned, having only heard 2 arrows fired. As the mist settles, they see the results: 1 arrow through a chest, another through a skull that also pierced someone's throat. He's absolutely impressed by the collateral kill. She admits she was just terrified and worked really hard to make that shot. The bald leader is still barely alive, coughing up blood. His hands are gone, and he seems to be fading in and out of consciousness. Kalium acknowledges he's glad the man survived, if only barely. The leader questions what Kalium's deal is. How can he cast magic without chanting? Why is someone like him even in a place like this? The world is completely unfair. Kalium responds that's a rich complaint coming from him. They brought this on themselves the moment they tried to exploit a woman in the dungeon. The dying man protests that none of them chose this fate. He was expelled for lacking magical talent and sold into slavery. If he had even half of Kalium's talent, his life wouldn't have ended this way. Everything is just a complete mess. As he finishes bleeding out, he goes limp. Kalium looks down at Urinal, who's apologizing and saying she's sorry for being wrong about killing them all. He tells her there's absolutely no need to apologize thanks to her, they're both safe. He asks if this was really her first fight. She confirms it was her first time aiming at a person. He admits it's the same for him, but it's something they'll need to grow accustomed to if they want to survive. They should check what the dead party had on them. He reflects that despite this being his first time killing someone, he feels strangely calm. Once he thought he was going to die. Maybe he mentally matured in that moment. If that's true, it doesn't help him get used to the awful stench of blood and burning flesh. It's absolutely revolting. She brings over one of the backpacks, and he examines it curiously. He determines it probably belonged to another adventurer and was stolen. Inside they find a handkerchief, a Bible, a frying pan, some bread, a knife, rope, and a wallet. Opening the wallet reveals it belonged to an F-ranked adventurer named Bison. She notes his face doesn't match any of the dead men. Kalium concludes Bison is probably the real owner of this backpack. Either he died and they looted it, or he was left behind and killed. Now that he thinks about it, even in the game, there were countless ways to die. That bald leader seemed to understand the basics of combat layout and positioning, but he never expected Kalium would use such an unconventional ability or manipulate the environment strategically. Kalium realizes if the situation were reversed, he probably wouldn't have considered that possibility either. He would have ended up just like them. But without that hourglass ability, he'd already be dead. Depending solely on luck and ability like this isn't his style. Frustrated, he tells Urinal they need to move. He needs a thorough and flawless strategy with 0 variables because his life is on the line. It's time to finally admit this reality. This is no longer a game, but a life or death situation he must clear. The scene shifts to later as Urinal pants heavily while they walk down another hallway. Kalium glances over, acknowledging that 12 hours of goblin hunting would exhaust anyone. He asks if she wants to rest. She gets excited, confirming if he's really okay with that. They set up a fire using pillars as makeshift seating. She hands him bread, telling him to eat. He thanks her. She calls out to him, thanking him for saving her twice today. He dismisses her gratitude, saying she did all the work. They also collected tons of magic stones thanks to her efforts. She admits that if he had accepted the men's offer earlier, she doesn't know what would have happened. He questions why he would ever do that. He would never abandon trustworthy comrades. She starts crying because he called her a comrade. She insists he should sleep first while she keeps watch. He immediately accepts without hesitation, grateful for her offer. As he falls asleep, the status window indicates he's entering rest mode. His level increases from 1 to 3. He's surprised to discover leveling only occurs when sleep mode triggers. He has 2 stat points to distribute. His 10 intelligence comes from original stat points, with +2 from dual-wielding wands. He needs 13 intelligence to shatter goblin shields. He maxed it out in the game as well, so he'll follow that route. As he allocates the points, he also notices Urinal's name. Her level also increased from 1 to 3. She's completely focused on agility with 2 points in dexterity. He recognizes this as a classic elf build, and her having 2 base dexterity is incredible. As expected, she possesses the sound mapping skill. He decides to max out her agility as rest mode ends. When he wakes, it's her turn to sleep. She thanks him and immediately rolls into the sleeping bag, admitting she's been waiting for this forever. She watches him position a shield against the wall, asking what he's doing. He explains he's just testing something. This spot should work. She questions what he's testing as he pulls out the fireball wand. He points it toward the shield and unleashes the spell. The fireball shoots out, shattering the shield into pieces scattered across the hallway. He confirms his fireball is definitely stronger now. This is absolutely not just a dream. She's amazed the shield actually shattered, calling it unbelievable before immediately falling asleep. He notes they need to find the exit gate next, observing how exhausted she must have been. Their fire burns out as they prepare to leave. She wonders how long finding the exit will take. He admits it's hard to predict. Exit gates are randomized and pure chance. His luck as someone transported into this world is probably terrible, so it might take a full week of grinding. But he's immediately proven wrong as they discover an exit room with adventurers guarding it. Their equipment suggests a veteran party, so caution is necessary. He raises his wands and calls out to them. They recognize the slave outfits, asking if they're from the Magic University slave team. Kaliam confirms they are, explaining there's no hostility, but the situation is awkward. A dwarf asks a priest named Emma when the university last sent slaves here. She responds it was around yesterday at 10 in the morning. The dwarf comments that if it's only been a day and a half and they've reached this point while still alive, that's genuinely impressive. Since the elf ditched magic for a bow, that was smart thinking. She's still clearly frightened. The dwarf asks if Kaliam is confident about dual-wielding wands. Kaliam confirms he is. The dwarf approves, saying false modesty is pointless, then asks if he has a fireball wand. Kaliam tells them he does. The dwarf asks another party member, a cat-like individual named Zickel, what he thinks. Zickel responds they can't just keep sitting around here. Emma suggests that if he's confident, they should recruit him. The dwarf reminds them he's still just a slave, and compared to Bison's level, he'll probably disappoint. They acknowledge it's true, but don't have better options. Kaliam recognizes the name as the backpack's owner and asks if they lost a mage comrade. The dwarf confirms they did. They encountered a black hornet on the first floor and Bison got destroyed instantly. He was the first comrade the dwarf liked in years, and it's a shame to lose him. Emma reveals he's not actually dead. She casts soul preservation, and a revival scroll can still save him. The dwarf calls her a genius, realizing they can't leave to obtain one. Zickel insists they need to decide already. Kaliam understands the situation. They found the exit, but there's a gate boss inside that requires a mage. He wonders what it could be. They have a priestess, so it's not undead. If it's a troll, salamander, or brass goat, their party should handle those. If the boss is a flying type, they would have definitely recruited Urinal since she's an archer. Yet they specifically need a mage with fireball wands. There's only one answer. He smirks, asking if the boss is a venomous spider. Emma and Zickel are both shocked he knows. The dwarf asks if he knows his dungeons well. Kalium responds with modest confidence a little bit. A venomous spider is a monster that constantly spams lethal venom and webs. The exit room is already webbed up, and it zips across the ceiling at insane speeds, attacking to inflict slow and bind effects. One mistake and you're trapped in its webs, which means certain death. Only a fire mage can counter it, burning the webs to force it onto the ground, then finishing it off. That's the standard tactic, which must be why they desperately need him. Emma agrees he's in. The dwarf's name is finally revealed as Vinan, and Emma tells him it's his call. Zickel says the same, whatever flaws this slave might have. He's definitely quick-witted. Vinan sees this as a good opportunity, asking if they'd like to join temporarily. Kalium refuses instantly. They're all confused, demanding to know why. Even Urinal questions why he's refusing this golden chance. He explains it's only a good chance to defeat the boss. After that, the exit gate will appear and they'll have a chance to escape. But they're omitting one critical detail only 4 can pass through. She realizes what he means. He continues, the gate destabilizes with each person who passes. Collapse accelerates, and it'll be gone in 5 minutes, so only 4 people can escape. Their party has 1 slot left, which is why they need him. In other words, they're telling him to abandon Urinal. Her eyes begin to well with tears. Vinan acknowledges it's quite impressive he figured that out, double-checking his name since he heard Urinal say it. Vinan admits they didn't intend to hide this reality and apologizes. It would be nice to take them both out, but they only need a mage. He wants to give Kalium a chance to at least escape alive. He should leave her behind right there. She grows increasingly worried, wondering what he'll decide. He considers it admittedly, it's a tempting offer, and he was genuinely tempted for a moment. But if he can't escape slavery even after getting out, he'll just be thrown back into the labyrinth again. The important question is whether they'll continue partnering with him afterward. There's no way he'll be thrown into another worthless slave party, and he'll never be lucky enough to find another slave with Urinal's exceptional skills. He declares that Urinal is his comrade and he can never abandon her. They're all surprised, and he's not sure why Urinal is shocked when he already refused the earlier proposal. Instead, he'd like to make a counter-proposal. How about they hire him? Vinan asks what he means, questioning if he's saying he won't go for the exit gate yet wants payment. He finds this interesting and asks how much Kalium wants. Kalium states 10,000 gold. Vinan gets furious. Urinal asks if he even knows how much that is. Kalium confirms he absolutely does. The magic stones and backpack they gathered on the first floor could sell for around 2,000 gold. Both of their prices as slaves are 3,000 each. With 10,000, he can clear their slave status and even secure emergency funds. The party starts arguing. Emma and Zickel think they should accept the deal. Kalium explains that a party wealthy enough to hire a cleric notorious for being expensive clearly has more than enough funds. They seem exhausted and desperate to escape. Most importantly, there's Bison. They need to bring back the scroll and resurrect him before the body with soul preservation magic deteriorates. They must be short on time and have no choice but to accept his terms. Zickel questions what Vinan is worried about since there aren't any other mages available. Kalium adds that for the sake of trust, he'd like the cleric to swear an oath in the name of the goddess Nathaniel. Emma agrees, explaining a covenant can never be broken. Vinan, realizing he can negotiate, tries for 9,000. Kalium counters with 9,500. Vinan attempts 9,300. Kalium remains adamant at 9,500. Vinan can't believe he's doing this, but realizes he has no other choice and agrees. Kalium promises he won't regret this. The dwarf certainly hopes not. Emma instructs them to follow her, and from this moment forth, in the name of the goddess Nathaniel, she will form this covenant. Vinan, Zickel, and herself promise to hire Urinal and Kalium for 9,500 gold. The condition is that their party will exit through the gate. If either party is wiped out, the contract becomes void. She asks if both representatives agree, and they do. Kalium opens the door, announcing it's time to head in. As they all enter the boss room covered in spiderwebs everywhere, Kalium comments it's dark and he can't see well. The boss is probably hiding in the ceiling right now. He notices a peculiar object nearby, calling it a neutral item filled with explosives. Most rooms contain a neutral item. Vinan warns them to watch out for the webs on the floor. If you step on them, they're incredibly difficult to remove. Kalium agrees they need to find the boss first. Vinan says all they have to do is burn the webs, and Kalium shouldn't try to be a hero. Then a sound makes a chill run down everyone's spine. They look up, seeing a web shooting out from the ceiling directly toward them. Vinan deflects it with his axe and tells Kalium to hurry up and blast the ceiling with a fireball. The creature needs to come down now. It continues rapid-firing shots as Kalium realizes that with the boss exposing its position like this, it'll be easy to target. There won't be many chances, so he needs to deal massive damage all at once. His hourglass activates. With 4 charges available, he decides to go all out and casts fireball after fireball after fireball after fireball. With a single action remaining, he casts one final fireball. Since all actions are consumed, the turn ends and all the fireballs shoot upward toward the boss. They strike directly on its mouth, creating a massive explosion. Zickel, Emma, and Vinan are all confused, demanding to know how he cast 4 spells without even chanting. As fire spreads across the ceiling, Kalium tells everyone to focus. This is their chance. From experience, he knows they cannot miss this opportunity for burst damage. He commands Urinal to shoot. She starts firing as the boss burns and falls toward the ground. She releases not 1 arrow but 6. 3 bounce off harmlessly. He tells her to wait. Using a goblin bow is meaningless against this enemy. The boss crashes to the ground as fire surges toward the ceiling. He instructs Emma to create a magic barrier, and as soon as it's up, Zickel needs to charge in. Zickel calls him a rookie, questioning why he's giving orders, but understands it's the right call. As smoke from the fire begins settling, Zickel charges straight toward the spider. The spider raises its legs to attack Zickel, but he activates an ability called Leaping Ambush, cutting off 2 of its legs and flying high over it. The boss screams and falls onto its back in a defensive position. Vinan announces it's going to blow and Emma needs to get ready. She casts a spell called Constellation Shield, creating a barrier protecting everyone. Kalium recognizes they knew the pattern and prepared for it, but rather than blocking the poison sac explosion, freezing the poison before it can detonate is the superior strategy. He shoots out Ice Lance straight toward the boss. It strikes the egg sac and freezes it solid. He shouts that now that he's done that, Emma needs to fall back and Vinan needs to charge in. Emma is confused. Kalium yells at Vinan to hurry with his burst damage. Vinan protests that normally they just maintain the shield, but Kalium screams at him to do as instructed. They're terrible at following directions in the game. All he had to do was click. Vinan charges in, commenting that this slave certainly has a temper, and leaps off the ground. He raises his axe high overhead and uses his ability called Great Shattering Cleave, bringing it down on the boss's head and sending a shockwave through the entire room. His axe buries deep into its skull. He pulls it out, declaring it's over, and raises it overhead. Kalium thinks to himself that surely these people understand that when facing bosses, there's a very low chance but definite possibility of a second phase. The party starts celebrating that they finally got it, acknowledging that even though it was just a first-floor boss, they couldn't let their guard down. Urinal notices Kalium still holding his wand. Kalium mutters they said the magic words, they got it. She wonders why he's still gripping it, and he tells her to look up for a second. She does, then becomes horrified, asking what all that is. The rest look up as well, but Emma says it's too dark for her to see clearly, wondering if there's something there. Zickel sees it and starts panicking, demanding to know what that is. The ceiling is covered with hundreds of spider eggs. Vinan says there's no way, he's never seen anything like this before. Even Emma confirms there's no mention of a second phase in any records. Kalium tells Urinal to roll that barrel over with all her strength. She runs to the explosive barrels and starts rolling one toward him. Vinen stops it from rolling, asking if Kalium wants him to throw this. Kalium confirms yes. Vinen protests he doesn't know where to aim. Kalium says that's simple. He tells Emma to cast weapon light on Urinal's arrow. She agrees and stretches her hand out, beginning the spell. Kalium instructs Urinal to raise her bow and shoot that arrow toward the ceiling. She confirms and fires it straight up into a cluster of eggs. Vinen says he can see it now and throws the barrel with tremendous force straight upward. Right as it reaches the apex of the throw, Kalium announces now's the time. He activates the hourglass for his turn and casts 4 fireballs before the turn forcibly ends. The fireballs spiral upward just like before and strike the barrel, detonating it in a massive explosion. Vinen's party yet again comments on his silent casting with ultra-fast chanting, wondering if it's always been this easy. He may be a slave, but his talent is absolutely insane. They question who the hell he really is. Kalium sees a bright light manifesting before him. The exit gate has opened. He sighs in relief, acknowledging it's finally over. Raiding with a skilled party is definitely easier, but not being able to control everything like in a game is frustrating. Zickel approaches, asking who he really is. It turns out he's genuinely surprised, admitting that for Kalium not trying to poison them and claim the gate for himself. He's honestly just impressed. Kalium admits he didn't think about that possibility, but if he had, he could have claimed the gate. Zickel says he's glad he didn't. Vinen adds he was impressed that level of skill is far beyond what anyone would expect from a slave. He wonders what Kalium was doing before all this. Kalium was just addicted to the game, and he wonders what the actual character was doing beforehand. He claims he was just a slave at the Magic Academy. Vinen says he's probably hiding his past for a reason, but won't force it out of him. Urinal approaches, commenting she didn't expect them to beat it without a scratch. They're seriously lucky. Vinen admits he honestly didn't have high hopes and only made the contract quickly, thinking they'd all die. Urinal is surprised. Kalium points out that's why the fee was calculated the way it was, but in the end, Vinen got his money's worth. Vinen agrees he certainly did, but it's not over yet. Kalium confirms that's right. Zickel wonders what they're talking about since they found the gate. Kalium explains the settlement has to be completed in the village. Urinal is surprised, and Emma clarifies yes, the contract terms specified the party must pass through the exit gate. Until then, the contract isn't fulfilled. Urinal protests the gate is right there. Surely they can just go through and collect payment. Emma explains that unfortunately, a contract sworn before the goddess of fairness must be honored to the exact letter. They also need to cross the gate. Urinal realizes they can't make it out, and Emma confirms that means the contract cannot be completed inside the dungeon. If they don't escape, it will be nullified. Kalium asks if she knew about this. He confirms yes, high-value dungeon contracts are always settled back in town. Zickel says no wonder Vinen offered 9,500. He had a feeling, but it was as expected. Vinen defends himself, saying he's managing the party's finances responsibly. Zickel comments that with this talent, it would be a waste if Kalium died. He needs to make sure he comes back and empties the dwarf's wallet. They announce it's time to head out. Kalium tells them to wait a second. This backpack belonged to one of their party members, Bison. They're all shocked. Vinen runs over, demanding if he's certain. He confirms it did look familiar, asking where Bison's body is. Kalium explains they didn't find it. This was loot from another slave team they fought. Emma and Zickel are surprised. Vinen assumes he wants something in return for this. Kalium says he just wants the backpack itself, excluding Bison's personal belongings. Vinen is relieved he doesn't want money and laughs, agreeing he'll give it to him. He'll also add some of their food supplies. Kalium asks if he's really going to hand over all their food supplies since he doesn't think they're heading straight back to town. Vinen explains it takes time to receive a resurrection scroll. Emma reveals she already brought one with her. Kalium asks how. They explain they already revived Bison once before. Kalium thinks this guy needs to find a new career path. Vinan admits honestly, Kalium is 100 times more competent than Bison. They all laugh, saying they should have recruited him from the start. Urinal starts processing this information. Kalium says better luck next time, though it'll cost more. Vinan responds he talks big, but he'll be watching. Urinal raises her hand, calling out to them, asking if they can just take Kalium back with them. They're all shocked she's willing to sacrifice herself, and even Kalium is stunned. She explains that as long as one of their party members makes it back to town, it counts because neither party was annihilated. He can claim the 9,500 gold, become a free man, officially join their party, and even gear up properly with the money. Emma asks what she plans to do then. Even a mage like Kalium would struggle to survive alone, and she won't last a single day. Silent, she considers before admitting she doesn't think they'll ever find the exit room again. At this rate, they'll both end up dying in the labyrinth. He shouldn't stay here because of her. She would have died long ago if she'd been on her own. It's only thanks to him she's made it this far. He's shocked she's willing to go this far. She starts crying, thanking him and saying she'll never forget him. He should live on well for her sake too. Vinan tells Urinal that normally recruiting members from another party is considered extremely rude inside a dungeon. She questions why they were doing exactly that at the exit room then. He admits he only thought of them as criminal slaves they could use to take down the boss. He didn't think about what came after, so he apologizes. But now it's different. He wants to treat them not as slaves, but as a proper party. He'd like to make them both an offer. First, if Kalium is willing, he'd like to officially recruit him. If he joins their party, they'll offer a 25% profit share and immediate payment of 9,500 gold. Kalium acknowledges this is quite a generous offer. Urinal reassures him by grabbing his hand, insisting she'll be fine and manage on her own. She really doesn't want him to die because of her. They should part with smiles. A status window appears, announcing this is an hourglass expansion opportunity. If he stays by Urinal's side now, her trust level will reach 100%. This catches him completely off guard. What is this? He reads further. If he maintains her trust above 80% afterward, he'll be able to give her commands during his turn. After his turn ends, she will carry out the command of her own will. He thinks this is absolutely insane. Now that he considers it, in the game, special abilities upgraded through different routes depending on level progression. It appears the same mechanics apply in real life. The skill expansion grants the ability to command party members. If he gives a command on his turn and ends it, she'll act immediately upon it. She's wondering why he's not leaving yet. Of course, he probably can't give orders that exceed her limits. That wouldn't make sense. The commands he can issue will likely be simple actions, such as telling her to drop her shield and shoot a spider. In terms of action points, it's probably 1 point per move, just like for him. The dwarf's party never listened at all, but Urinal was always acting as soon as his turn ended. Considering how a single action point affects combat, he smiles, realizing this is incredible. Vinan asks what he thinks, but Kalium says he needs more time to think. He activates the hourglass to give himself a full minute of calm contemplation. He wonders which option provides the greatest benefit. He doesn't know what kind of butterfly effect this choice will have, so caution is essential. He can either take the hourglass upgrade with Urinal or escape the dungeon right now, break free from slavery, and become a member of a seasoned party with the dwarf. His turn ends, and he's made his decision. He grabs Urinal's arm, announcing he appreciates the offer, but his answer remains the same. He's going to escape together with Urinal. As originally planned, the three of them should go through the gate. She starts sobbing uncontrollably. They're shocked he's giving up this opportunity, demanding if he's serious. He confirms he is. Even if this were a game, he'd have made the same choice. Thinking ahead, raising Urinal is the smarter move. He's not that cold-hearted to abandon a crying woman either. She asks why he's not leaving. He's already stressed enough, so she needs to be quiet. He explains that leaving her behind would be awful for his conscience. Zickle approaches and shouts, but it's because he's crying, calling Kalium one hell of a guy. He can't believe how much of a man he is. Emma adds the Magic Academy really scouted a good one this time. Vinen says he wants him even more now. Emma apologizes for ruining the moment, but wonders how they're going to defeat the next boss alone. Kalium asks if they could take the spider's corpse. Vinen protests that's not right. A touching moment is one thing, but this is something else. Kalium thinks this guy has zero situational awareness. He says he'll just buy it, and they should deduct $1,300 from the $9,500 reward. They agree but charge him an extra $200. Kalium accepts. Vinen then asks for Urinal's name. She freezes, and he asks if her name is Pretty Lady. She clarifies her name is Urinal. He keeps calling her Pretty Lady, saying the sincerity she showed was cooler than the fireball shenanigans Kalium was doing. The two of them need to make sure to return alive, and he's going to give them both a token of support. He hands her 4 health potions. She thanks him gratefully. Vinen then says if they make it out of town, he'll buy Kalium a drink. Kalium responds it better be expensive. Emma instructs them that when they reach town, they need to look for her at the Temple of Nathaniel. She'll be waiting there to pay the reward directly. Kalium thanks her. She gives them Nathaniel's blessing, praying for their safe return. Kalium knows from the game this blessing grants +1 to all stats for 12 hours and immunity to curses and decay. The veteran party decides it's time to finally head back to town. They give Kalium and Urinal one last meaningful look before approaching the gate. Zickle tells them to remember his name as Emma wishes them the best. Vinen starts digging through his bag, saying it's going to be farewell for now. He pulls out an E-ranked mana stone, explaining it counts as one person passing through the gate. He rolls it through, demonstrating now only one person can leave. He tells them if they make it back to the city alive, come find him at the Adventurers Guild. He states his name once more, saying he knows they'll come, so he'll be waiting. The gate then closes as Urinal drops to her knees. She wonders why he stayed and how they're meant to clear the exit room again. He explains he knew it was too much to hope for, but she shouldn't worry. His body has been steeped in this game for so long he's calculated everything already. He tells her not to cry. They can totally do this. First, they can rip out the spider's fangs from its corpse. She agrees and starts crying, but her trust reaches 100%. He can now command her during his turn. She insists it's not that she doesn't want to work, she's ready to do anything he wants, no matter what it is. He can even use her as a shield, but surely it would be faster if they gather materials together. He tells her she needs to trust him, there's a reason for everything. She should focus on pulling out the fangs. She agrees. He explains he wants to help, but the item extraction success rate is proportionate to the dexterity stat. Hers is 2 points higher than his, so she's got a better shot. He needs to review the skill expansion system and strategize for the battles ahead. The system mentions everything already known, but adds that high difficulty actions or commands that go against her nature may be difficult to perform. He acknowledges this makes sense. He'll have to test what kind of commands she can follow easily, and he needs to test it soon. She successfully pulls out the fang and shows him. He praises her, saying they can go, and they'll make poison arrows on the way. He starts smiling, noting she was crying a minute ago and they could die at any moment, but he's glad to see her super happy right now. He instructs her to combine the poison gland with the goblin arrow to create a poison arrow, handing her materials. She expresses doubt that even if he makes new arrows for her, she's not sure they'll be useful in actual battle. He explains the reason she couldn't deal damage to the boss was because of her gear. Archery equipment is quite important. Since they can't get another bow yet, they should at least use quality arrows. Bows are hard to make, but arrows are different. If you combine the right materials to make special arrows, you can draw out incredible power even with a terrible bow. He tells her he's counting on her. The in-game success rate of item combination was also proportional to dexterity. It's low, so he's not expecting her to succeed immediately, but she does it on her first try, asking if she means like this. He turns in shock, asking how she did that. She explains she just poked around very carefully, and it worked. He thinks that's easier said than done if you mess up the force control. The poison sac could burst and kill you. Why the hell is he making her do something so dangerous? The system confirms she succeeded as he acquires the item Poison Arrow. He tells her not to use them until he instructs her to. Just keep them safe. They can head out. She agrees, and they start heading down the hallway. He wonders if he should test his newly added hourglass feature and activates his turn. With 4 actions left, he tells her to take the water bottle out of the bag and give it to him. It doesn't consume action points. He's surprised, saying it makes sense since it's not considered him acting directly. The turn ends, and she opens the bag, grabbing the water. She asks why she's doing this all of a sudden, saying it's a bit hot and she thought he might be thirsty. He smiles, saying he's now curious how it'll work during combat. Some goblins appear further down, and he says this is a perfect opportunity. He activates the hourglass and uses 1 action point, casting Fireball. He says he'll deal with the first one and tells her to shoot the leg of the goblin in the back. He ends his turn. She immediately releases an arrow. After one goblin gets torched, the arrow pierces through its companion's leg. It falls to the ground screaming in pain. He walks over, pointing the wand at its head, and casts Fireball. He asks why she shot through its leg and not its head. She explains the leg was easier to hit. He confirms that if he gives an order during his turn, she carries it out regardless of her own will. This is excellent. It'll help when there's a problem difficult for him to handle. For instance, things that only a woman can do. Come to think of it, there was additional explanation about commands that are too difficult. He wants to do a simple test to see how it works. He activates the hourglass, telling her to do a TikTok dance, and ends his turn. She's confused. He thinks as expected, nothing happens. He then activates the hourglass again, saying to do any dance, wondering if this will work. He ends his turn, and she immediately starts busting out an actual TikTok dance for some reason. Before she realizes what she was doing, she starts freaking out. He kind of just stares, saying he now understands how it works. She apologizes, and he tells her they can just keep walking for now. As they head further into the labyrinth, he goes to take off his bag and grab some water. He says he needs to know one important thing. He activates the hourglass, saying before they head deeper in, he wants her to say everything she knows about him. She explains she heard people talking when they were on the slave ship together. The reason he became a slave was none other than murder. This causes him to spit out his water. She asks if he's okay. He says he's fine, asking why she's bringing it up. She explains she thought he was scary at first, but she's glad he's not. He definitely had his own reason and probably panicked. He agrees that's right, realizing this is a disaster. Apparently, he killed a Foxkin woman who was his teammate. Kalium reflects that in the game, Foxkin were skilled in magic, intelligent, and characters who easily charmed people with their looks. Urinal says she probably committed a crime worthy of death. The Kalium she knows would never have done that without reason. He thinks she's kind of a fanatic and apologizes, saying a lot has happened. She mentions before he said he was active as a labyrinth adventurer. The Magic University puts one person with labyrinth experience into each 4-person slave party. Now she thinks she knows why they formed the teams that way since he's here. She's really glad. He wonders more about the version of himself before he possessed this body. As they turn the corner, she's surprised as they discover another exit room. Kalium admits he expected another one, but finding it already is too lucky and makes him more anxious. She tells him to look at this, pointing at a person on the floor. She confirms it's definitely Bison's soul preservation magic, just makes it look like he's sleeping. He's also really neat and pale, wondering if he might be a rich boy. Kalium agrees he most likely is, since soul preservation magic is expensive and slaves couldn't even dream of it. She says this is the first time she's seen it in person. Kalium wonders if they recover the body and take it out, maybe Bison's family will give them a reward. More importantly, one of his legs is missing. He asks if she hears the sound of anything eating meat nearby. She listens, confirming she does hear a very unpleasant sound. He asks if it's maybe the sound of wings. She says no. He finds this strange. If bison was taken down by a black hornet like the dwarf said, it would leave its spot to hunt for more while it has its prey. He tells her they should head toward the sound. She says they don't have to go anywhere. As soon as she turns the corner, she points, saying it's in this other area. They turn and see the culprit, a black hornet larva. Kalium's surprised it disappeared, leaving its young. If adventurers had defeated it, there should be traces of battle. For the larva to be left here alone is strange, unless it encountered a stronger entity. There's no way the strongest monster on the first floor would have run away. He then has a disturbing realization, asking if any adventurer has gone missing on the first floor recently. She says she doesn't know the details, but she heard a rogue called Mr. Back Attack went missing. Something about how he single-handedly defeated a black hornet when all his party members were defeated. She wonders why he's asking. Kalium says he's sure of it now, a rogue, the worst possible matchup for a mage. She asks what's wrong, and if she's ever heard of a possessed adventurer. She says she hasn't. He explains that's to be expected, it's an extremely rare occurrence in the labyrinth. Even after clearing countless rounds in the game, there's only one case where a possessed adventurer appeared as the exit boss on the first floor. It's a state where an adventurer's soul is captured by the labyrinth master, turning them into a servant. They have an incurable madness status effect and use the same skills and magic from their adventurer days, but are significantly more powerful, making them incredibly difficult to deal with. He says no wonder they found the exit room so quickly. The labyrinth master is toying with them. This is a serious headache. She can tell he's panicked and starts crying, asking if they're finished. Realizing he can't show himself losing composure, he apologizes and tells her not to worry. It's a difficult situation, but they can definitely do it. She asks if he's certain. He confirms, of course, he's here after all. The scene shifts to a tavern in the city. A guy is laughing at Vinan, but Vinan tells him to be serious. The bartender says he needs to be realistic. There's no way there's a chantless ultra-fast caster. Either one of those abilities is a once-in-a-century occurrence. Vinan responds if he doesn't want to believe it, then don't. The bartender acknowledges Vinan made it back, and that's what matters. He tells him to hold on a second and pours him a cup. Vinan asks why he's doing this since he hasn't ordered anything yet. The bartender jokes he thought Vinan ordered it with a chantless spell and laughs, telling him to hurry up and chug it at ultra speed. He's absolutely roasting him. Vinan downs it, and the bartender asks his assessment. Vinan says not bad. The slave is still lacking experience within the labyrinth, but his skills are solid. The bartender comments, of course everyone Vinan introduces is promising talent. Give him a bit more experience and he'll probably be the next Mr. Back Attack. Vinan says Back Attack is a legend among first floor adventurers. He's someone who could have handled double duty even in a second floor party. He won't be able to compare just yet. He can't believe someone like that got taken over by the labyrinth master. The bartender agrees it's a real shame. Vinan adds it's an even greater tragedy for the adventurer who meets Back Attack as a boss. The door slams open as a woman starts screaming at Vinan, crying about her son and asking if it's true that Bison is dead. Vinan apologizes, confirming it is. While searching for the exit, Bison went ahead on his own and was taken by a black hornet. She starts crying harder, saying she asked him to take care of her son. Her other son says his soul preservation might still be intact. They should stay calm and hear Vinan out. Bison's death is not either of their faults. But then, in a very cold tone, he says surely Vinan wouldn't let things end so foolishly. not when a member of the Burton family has died. He's already made plans to rescue Bison, hasn't he? Vinan confirms the magic lasts for a week, and there should be no issue reviving Bison. Their resurrection scroll will be ready in 3 days, and they plan to depart around then. Bison's brother says that seems a bit tight, asking if they can locate Bison right away. Vinan says he'll use a specific item to cast a tracking spell a genius mage found it for them. Bison's brother asks about this. The bartender explains apparently it's a slave mage who can cast ultra fast and without chanting. Vinan protests he can't believe the bartender is still mocking him. It's true. The brother, named Clarence, asks if it's really time for jokes. His mother suggests maybe that mage recovered the body. Clarence is annoyed. Vinan admits it's possible their party only had 2 members. Clarence sighs, saying he doesn't need to hear any more about a 2-member party. His mother insists this isn't the time for him to be acting down. No matter the cost, she'll pay a reward for the retrieval of Bison's body. A crocodile-like person hears this and slides his chair back, asking how much she's willing to offer. It's actually a lizard, not a crocodile. He tells her hiring them would be easy. They operate on the 3rd floor, and unlike Vinan, they don't fumble. Clarence tells the creature to be quiet unless spoken to, scaring him off. He runs back to his table. Clarence explains if his mother tries to solve everything with money, she's bound to attract the wrong kind of people. She protests if she doesn't do something like this, no one's going to find his little brother. He says he'll go himself with Vinan. Vinan responds that if a 5th floor mage is coming along, then he'll welcome it. Clarence confirms he's his brother, so he should be the one to bring him back. That genius mage intrigues him too. Back to Kalium, he says they need to call this off. She asks what he's talking about. He explains they're waiting for the dwarf party. At this rate, the larva will starve to death within 2 days. It's still the spawn of a monster considered a boss on the 1st floor. The scent is keeping others away, but once it fades, they'll catch on and start swarming, so they need to move. It's also strangely valuable in its own way, though they'll need to relocate. She's just surprised it has use. She suggests maybe they could wait for the next exit room. He refuses if back attack is really here. A 1st floor level party has no chance of clearing it. Waiting for a new exit room is not an option. Their best bet is for Urinal and him to take down back attack and make it out. While it'll be tough, it's not like they're lacking in firepower. Urinal asks if he thinks they can beat back attack. He smirks, saying there is a way, but it's going to be difficult. She asks what it is. She'll do whatever he says. He asks if she means anything. She confirms yes. He smiles, saying this is good. They'll have to use a somewhat rough strategy. Later that day, after some rest, a giant explosion erupts in the hallway. Some goblins look terrified. One gets shocked while another catches an arrow to the head. Kalium announces from now on, they're going through hellish training. He declares they'll need to hunt 100 goblins. She looks scared, asking if she heard that right. He dashes off, and they start speedrunning through goblins, killing them left and right. A montage shows the 2 of them working together to easily handle every goblin they encounter. Kalium explains that level 5 is almost the limit on the 1st floor of the labyrinth. They've reached just over level 4 after defeating the spider. If they train hard for 2 days, leveling up is achievable. Reaching level 5 is important because it's the growth breakpoint where you can learn one more special ability, which should be huge for him. He's going to collect only the most valuable magic stones and discard the rest. He tells her they should hunt the goblin shaman. He can tell she's a little exhausted, but they need to hunt it and find the most useful scrolls. He says they should hurry up and go after it. She agrees. He's absolutely overworking her. That night, they're resting back by the larva. He tells her she did a great job. She's just panting, laying on the floor. He says fortunately, they're ready. She notes the larva's breathing sounds much weaker, almost like hers. He confirms it's still alive, but it'll probably die by tomorrow since it hasn't eaten for days. She wonders if they should feed it bison. Kalium says things have gotten hardcore, but not that bad. Damaging a soul-preserved corpse is a serious crime. He's relieved they managed to find all the necessary items in time. She wonders what they're going to do now. She sees him filling the orc barrel with water. She assumes this must be part of his plan. He confirms that's right, it's almost ready. It's time to get some rest. She gets excited. She says they should swap shifts, but he already lays down, saying he'll sleep first. She starts releasing killing intent, saying he always has his reasons. He admits it can't be helped if he doesn't sleep first. He can't level up or plan strategies. He tells her it's not much, but he'll take watch for an extra 30 minutes during the shift change. She agrees and immediately seems happier. She tells him to get some good rest. He thinks she sure does have one scary side. He says she should wake him up in 2.5 hours. He enters the rest state, and his level increases from 4 to 5, as does hers. He can now select a new special ability. Kalium says from now on they're going to enter the exit room. She questions if he's really planning to face the boss looking like this. He explains what she sees isn't everything, the fact that they will defeat the boss remains unchanged. She clarifies it's not that she was just wondering if he would really be wearing this. He confirms, of course, the Black Hornet's egg is really hard. He has this eggshell as armor. The poor little larva is crying. She says that thing absolutely reeks. The doors open to the boss room and they enter, seeing a man sitting on a throne across the chamber. He slowly stands up, and Kalium tells him to bring it on. Mr. Backattack starts laughing menacingly before vanishing, instantly appearing behind the two of them, coming in with an attack to live up to his name. It's now Kalium's turn as the hourglass activates. Kalium realizes he couldn't see the attack coming, but the hourglass activated for a reason. Backattack must have used his signature skill, leaping ambush, and is now positioned directly behind him. He anticipated the rogue's attack pattern in advance and already has his wand aimed precisely where Backattack's face will be. This is genuine tactical brilliance. After landing a quadruple lightning shock barrage, he needs to command Urinal to drench Backattack with water the instant he's electrocuted. All action points are consumed, ending his turn and triggering the 60-second cooldown on his hourglass ability. Time resumes its natural flow as Mr. Backattack gets hit by the electrical surge. While convulsing from the shock, he drops to his knees as Urinal grabs the oak barrel filled with water and throws its entire contents over him. As he becomes completely drenched, Kalium activates a skill called Ice Pick and launches it toward him. Backattack dodges with a zigzag pattern, creating distance instead of closing in for another strike. Kalium identifies this as an ability called Shadow Leap, since Backattack used all his movement skills before the cooldown resets. Kalium tells Urinal to lift the oak barrel while he switches to his telekinesis wand. He instructs her to burst it with an arrow as he levitates it overhead. She releases the shot and the barrel explodes, causing water to spray everywhere across the battlefield. He launches another ice pick, but this time he targets the water covering the floor, transforming the entire arena into a treacherous frozen environment that severely limits Backattack's mobility. Backattack realizes the tactical disadvantage he's now facing. Kalium questions what his opponent will do now. He'll probably attempt cautious steps or wall walking techniques. Instead, something flies through the air at incredible speed, shattering the hornet eggshell armor in an instant. Urinal screams out Kalium's name, desperately asking if he's okay. He confirms he is, thanks to the eggshell absorbing most of the impact. At this distance, he can't believe Backattack used magic throw, a high-risk ability. Fortunately, the destructive power weakened significantly due to the range. The weapon boomerangs all the way back toward Mr. Backattack, and he catches the dagger before his form begins fading from visibility. Kalium recognizes this immediately. It's the invisibility skill. He commands Urinal to locate his position. She confirms and begins using her ears to listen carefully. She detects him on the wall above and shoots an arrow directly toward where he's hiding. As the arrow flies through the air toward him, it gets dangerously close to his face before he narrowly dodges mid-air, leaving him completely vulnerable while airborne. He reaches toward his back and grabs something from his inventory. Kalium identifies it instantly. That's a grenade. The hourglass is still far from finishing its cooldown, but this is exactly the moment he's been waiting for, and he starts smirking with absolute confidence. He looks directly at the Black Hornet larva and casts Ice Pick, completely obliterating the creature in one shot. Kalium reveals he leveled up specifically for this very moment. The special ability is called Slaughterer's Momentum. He pulls out the lightning wand once more and aims it downward as the hourglass activates again. The special ability Slaughterer's Momentum, at least in the game, was an ability that recovered 2 action points upon killing an enemy. But now the activation condition has fundamentally changed. He gains a temporary 2-point hourglass that lasts for 60 seconds. He explains that to utilize this ability, he painstakingly shared his food and dragged the larva all the way to this boss room. The target is a bomb the size of a ping-pong ball 10 meters away in back attack's grip. It's an incredibly difficult shot, but he has to make it count. As time freezes around him, he carefully lines up the trajectory, hoping he executes this perfectly. He casts Lightning Shock twice using both points, forcibly ending his turn. Time unfreezes as the lightning bolts shoot outward through the air. They strike the grenade that back attack is carrying, triggering a massive explosion in the sky above both of them. Kalium starts celebrating, declaring he actually did it. It makes perfect sense. He was a specialist marksman in the army after all. He asks where back attack is now, and Urinal points, confirming he's still over there. Kalium launches an ice pick that hits back attack straight in the chest. As the freezing effect takes hold, back attack lets out pained grunts as ice spreads across his body. Kalium confirms the freeze status effect landed perfectly, meaning back attack won't be able to dodge anymore. He tells Urinal to hurry and shoot now. She draws back the poison arrow and releases the shot. It soars through the air, striking back attack directly in the chest. Kalium reflects that the level difference doesn't matter in the end, since the poison sac hit directly. Back attack is going to die just from breathing. If everything goes according to plan, he'll die slowly and painfully. Now that he's exposed to the toxic gas, he'll take 20 damage per second for 20 seconds. Even though Kalium can't see a health bar like in the game, it should be over in just a few seconds. He hopes back attack doesn't struggle and just accepts his fate. But then, to his complete surprise, a very bright light begins emanating from the middle of the poison miasma, completely dispersing it. Kalium curses he shouldn't have hoped for such an easy victory. He tells Urinal it's time for Plan B, admitting he was really hoping it wouldn't come to this. The reason a possessed adventurer in the labyrinth represents the most dangerous enemy type is because they can still use the special abilities from their time as an adventurer. Back attack looks absolutely furious now. Kalium says fortunately, this is something he anticipated and prepared Plan B to cover all possible scenarios. A flashback reveals an earlier conversation where he explained they should fire just one poison arrow first to see what happens. Urinal argued they should use both arrows to maximize their chances of winning. He countered that back attack supposedly defeated a Black Hornet alone, which seems highly suspicious. He might possess a method to remove poison. Even if he's a skilled and agile thief, fighting a Black Hornet without getting grazed by its poison stinger even once is virtually impossible. If he got poisoned but didn't die, that confirms he has some form of poison resistance or removal ability. Urinal asked if this means back attack can cure poison. Kalium clarified no, since he's a thief, he wouldn't use healing magic. Based on his analysis, if it's not bombs, potion, or scrolls, the only remaining option would be special abilities. Confirming whether or not he possesses detoxification is their top priority. She panicked, asking if he detoxifies immediately, does that mean they're finished? He said no and smiled, declaring it's time for Plan B. Now witnessing exactly that scenario, Back Attack uses a skill called Adrenaline Rush. It recovers 50 health points, resets the cooldowns of one of his first-tier skills, and removes all negative status effects. His eyes illuminate with intense energy from the adrenaline surge. He activates Cautious Steps, dashing through the ice straight toward Kalium at incredible speed. Kalium notes the hourglass cooldown still has 3 seconds remaining. Urinal wonders if she should shoot now. He tells her not yet since Back Attack activated a movement skill. He'll easily dodge. To execute Plan B properly, he needs to create distance from Urinal. He dashes forward instead of retreating, sliding on the ground and using the ice to carry his momentum forward. He fires Lightning Shot as he slides. Back Attack dodges to the side, then zigzags forward at blinding speed, grabbing onto Kalium's wrist. He twists it violently, forcing Kalium to drop the wand and scream in pain. He then reaches forward, grabbing Kalium by the throat and raising his dagger high into the air. Kalium yells for Urinal, and Back Attack looks up, seeing her holding an arrow aimed at them. But in that critical instant, Back Attack lifts Kalium away from the ice surface. Kalium gets stabbed in the chest, gasping out Plan B with his last breath. As he starts falling backward, Urinal screams out his name in absolute terror. He thinks this hurts like hell, and he desperately needs to use the potion he received from Vinen. As he starts drinking it frantically, Back Attack reaches into his own bag as well and pulls out a potion, beginning to chug it himself. Kalium curses he's truly a damn thief through and through. Once the potion falls to the floor empty, Back Attack rears back his dagger for a finishing blow. But now it's Kalium's turn as the hourglass activates at the perfect moment. Kalium smiles triumphantly, declaring it's too late. He's glad Back Attack fell for his bluff and is moving exactly as planned. This is precisely the Plan B he devised. He'll survive on potion power alone, so Urinal should give it her best shot. He drinks another potion, consuming 1 action point. He then grabs a scroll, which costs another action point, thinking to himself that Back Attack won't be able to kill him with just a dagger anymore. He breaks the scroll open with 1 action point remaining and commands Urinal to shoot him. While Back Attack may be persistent, it's finally time to say goodbye. He performs 1 final action, taking the last point, and smiles with absolute confidence. With all action points consumed, the hourglass flips again. The dagger strikes an invisible barrier on Kalium's chest, stopping completely. Back Attack is shocked and confused. Kalium reveals its magic armor. Surely he didn't know about this trump card. He starts grabbing onto Back Attack to hold him in place. That was the scroll he just used, and it nullifies up to 5 attacks with damage totaling 100 or less. He shouts that now is the time as Back Attack begins stabbing him repeatedly like a prisoner being shanked. Urinal fires the arrow, sending it flying upward toward Back Attack's exposed position. It strikes him directly in the side. Kalium asks how it feels to be hit by poison arrows twice. This is some serious poetic justice. Kalium yells that it's time for the real battle to begin. As the toxic miasma starts spreading out from the arrow wound, Urinal screams, asking if Kalium is okay. Back Attack starts screaming and coughing up blood violently. Kalium gasps that he feels like his lungs are being shredded apart and he needs to continuously drink healing potions to survive. Back Attack tries desperately to push away from him, and Kalium can't believe he still possesses this much strength left. As Back Attack raises his dagger high, he starts to thrust it forward but stops right before making contact and drops the weapon. He then collapses onto the ground, motionless. Kalium realizes what this means as the toxic miasma also begins to disperse. He declares this monster finally died, but his own consciousness is fading dangerously fast. As he falls to his knees, Urinal runs in screaming that he better not die on her. He desperately tells her to give him a potion. She cries that they won, so they have to get through the gate together. Even though he's constantly drinking potions, the pain is still unbearable. Since his calculations were uncertain, even if he drinks all remaining potions, He still might die from accumulated poison damage. She cries, insisting he can't die until he drinks this one as well. He has no other choice but to try. The exit gate then begins manifesting before them, and he gasps that he thinks he'll actually survive now. He praises her she shot that last arrow perfectly. She admits that because the terrain was blocking her view, she was terrified the arrow might miss. He explains all ranged attacks suffer accuracy penalties when shooting from low ground, and back attack claimed the height advantage with that tactical principle in mind. That's why he selected Artillery Strike for Urinal's level 5 special ability. It allows her arrows to ignore obstacles and shoot directly toward the target. He says he was completely confident she would hit it. She cries, saying she's so relieved. He says there's something crucial they need to do before leaving. She wonders what it is. He explains their exit gate has 2 remaining slots for people to pass through. She confirms that's correct. He says he wants to take both Bison's body and back attack's corpse with them. This declaration stuns her completely. The scene shifts back to the tavern where Vinan is questioning someone about why they're present since they don't even drink alcohol. He wonders if it's to personally check on the resurrection scroll status. It's none other than Clarence, who responds that his little brother's life hangs in the balance, so he must confirm everything himself. Vinan confirms the scroll he requested will be ready today, meaning they should be able to enter the dungeon around 5 in the morning. Clarence grows increasingly anxious since the soul preservation magic doesn't have much time remaining. If the rescue mission fails, even if they issue another resurrection scroll, bringing Bison back won't be possible. He needs to eliminate every possible variable and guarantee this mission succeeds. Emma bursts into the tavern, announcing she's brought the scroll as requested. More importantly, they need to head to the dungeon office immediately the first floor exit gate has been opened. They're all genuinely surprised. Clarence demands confirmation that it was definitely the first floor gate. She confirms that's what she heard, and they must go now. Vinan agrees they need to investigate this immediately. Zickel jokingly comments he can already smell Vinan's money getting snatched away from him. At the Dungeon Union underground control room, the gate manifests as a young woman stretches, complaining it's been open forever and wondering why nobody's coming out yet. She mentions hearing ridiculous rumors about ultra-fast casting and chantless magic, questioning why she has to deal with this situation. Vinan charges in, demanding to know if anybody's coming out and confirming the gate really opened. Clarence greets the woman, calling her instructor. She acknowledges she heard the news and wonders if he came hoping to see if Bison made it out alive. He confirms yes, though he's trying not to get his hopes up too high. Finally, something begins emerging from the gate. The instructor says she hopes things went well for his brother and he shouldn't worry too much. She wants to see who it is, only to witness Bison's corpse stick his head through the dimensional portal. She starts screaming after seeing this horrific sight, demanding to know what's wrong with his face. Vinan and the others are shocked as well, and Clarence runs over immediately. The gate's color shifts, indicating someone else is coming through as back attack's body gets thrown onto the floor. Emma is shocked as she also recognizes him instantly. The instructor freaks out since half the people emerging are corpses, demanding to know what's happening and questioning if a 2-person party really defeated Mr. Back Attack. Clarence recalls the rumors about a slave mage who can cast without chanting, wondering if it's actually true. The gate shifts color once more. Vinan asks if that's Kalium emerging, but Urinal steps out instead, clarifying it's her, but Kalium will be out very soon. They express relief that she made it out, saying they had complete faith. She insists Kalium did all the real work. The instructor notes she's part of the slave team from the Magic Academy and asks if something's wrong. The instructor explains that even for a highly skilled duo, defeating Back Attack would be massive news. But this was just a 2-person slave party with terrible equipment who formed only a few days ago. She demands to know how they pulled this off. The gate changes color as Kalium stretches his hand out through the portal. He slowly exits, looking absolutely battle-worn with blood covering his shirt. Zickel declares they really did it. Emma says she's genuinely moved they even brought back Bison's body successfully. Vinan notices the blood, asking with concern if Kalium is injured. Kalium comments that it's really noisy and calls out to Emma, demanding he needs their payment immediately. He starts passing out, collapsing into Urinal's arms. She screams out his name in panic as the scene shifts. They're transported to the Temple of Nathaniel for emergency treatment. Kalium slowly opens his eyes, asking what happened. Emma explains he passed out the exact moment he stepped through the gate. He collapsed due to a severe drug overdose from ingesting too many healing potions in rapid succession. He responds that he had to survive somehow without an antidote and immediately asks about the payment. She confirms it's on the desk, telling him not to worry and asking if he'd like to verify the amount. He checks and discovers there's only 7,850 gold, noting he's short some money. She explains that's the treatment fee deducted. He protests he never requested treatment. She clarifies that Urinal did, though Kalium can't believe she meddled in his financial matters, but acknowledges he should be grateful she was worried about him. Emma asks if they'll be heading to the academy to reclaim their citizen status. He says he's more concerned about what happened to Bison and Back Attack. She explains Bison is being treated in the resurrection chamber and the revival process should begin very soon. As for Back Attack, his body was already sent to the morgue. Kalium asks if he can't be revived. She explains his body didn't have soul preservation magic cast on it, and unfortunately, reviving Back Attack is impossible under normal circumstances. Soul preservation magic is a spell that binds the soul to the body. The duration lasts 1 week maximum. If the body is retrieved within that time period, revival becomes possible. But in Back Attack's case, there's a potential loophole. If the dungeon master extracted his soul and stored it somewhere like preserved food, and you retrieve that soul from the Sanctuary of Souls, revival will become possible. They probably declared it impossible because they don't know the sanctuary even exists. Kalium only discovered it after reaching the God of Strategy difficulty level in the game. He tells her he's going to leave now. She gives him another blessing as he heads toward the Magic Academy. Urinal's already waiting there, and she greets him, asking if he's feeling better. He confirms he is and suggests they should use this money to free themselves from slavery immediately. She gets genuinely excited by this prospect. But the Academy official announces that after careful calculations, Urinal cannot be freed from her slave status, instantly destroying her smile. Kalium demands to know what they're talking about since they should have more than enough funds. The official explains the price for free citizen status is 3,000 gold, but based on her contribution metrics, her share amounts to only 2 gold total. Therefore, she cannot become a free citizen. Kalium says he doesn't quite understand, demanding to know what standard they're using for calculation and distribution. The official says it would be better to demonstrate this in person rather than verbally explain. He reveals the scales of fairness magical equipment that measures what each person contributed to the adventure. According to the Vinan party's official testimony, this represents the level of her contribution in the exit battle room encounter. Kalium thinks he's never seen this magic system in the game. He protests her contribution is too low, pointing out she personally crafted the weapon that defeated Back Attack. The official asks if that has anything to do with the Vinan party's contract specifically. Kalium argues that because the entire plan revolved around acquiring the poison arrow and clearing the next exit room, if she didn't possess the dexterity to process the poison fang properly, he wouldn't have proposed the contract in the first place. She starts crying at this injustice. The official considers this argument carefully. As the scales begin adjusting, he announces it has been properly recorded on the scales of fairness, and they can begin the comprehensive calculation for their complete adventure. He then casts lie prevention magic as well, meaning neither of them will be able to speak anything except absolute truth. The official instructs them to understand this is the standard manual used when evaluating a slave team's contribution. He warns their tongues might feel somewhat numb from the spell's effect. They should place their bags on the table and truthfully recount their entire adventure and individual contributions up until they exited the labyrinth. Kalium goes first, and the official announces they'll begin with his testimony. Kalium thinks to himself they need to escape slavery together. The total amount from selling various magic stones and back attacks belongings reaches 14,600 gold, approximately the earnings of a typical 4-person party on the first floor. But out of this total, Urinal's calculated share amounts to only 20%. Even with her complete settlement, it doesn't reach the 3 she desperately needs. Kalium reflects he thought he tried pretty hard to maximize her contribution, wondering why it's only 20%. This isn't nearly enough money. She starts crying, growing increasingly disappointed. The official asks if she's disappointed, explaining the average income for slaves in the labyrinth is 500 gold, and that's only if they survive the brutal 10% survival rate. The fact that she's alive and earning this income now, none of it resulted from her being particularly skilled. All she accomplished was meeting Kalium and following a predetermined strategy. To put it coldly and objectively, all she did was shoot 2 poison arrows. She represents an existence that can be replaced by literally anyone who can listen to his instructions and execute basic commands. Nevertheless, if she feels dissatisfied with the profit distribution, she can formally protest right now. She accepts the decision without argument. Kalium genuinely wonders why the assistant felt compelled to phrase it so harshly just to make her feel worse about her situation. The official tells Kalium if he's thinking of showing any kindness to stop immediately. Sending criminals who were slaves into the labyrinth also serves as a form of legal punishment. Kalium says he understands and confirms he'll use his gold to purchase his status as a free man. The official takes 3,000 gold from him but removes the slave collar from his neck using magic. The official congratulates him, announcing they will now conclude the formal evaluation. 2 guards enter and prepare to escort Urinal to the slave quarters. They comment she's skilled with the bow, so it would be profitable to sell her to the Adventurers Guild. Kalium thinks to himself he's going to have to find her later to recruit her back. The assistant interjects before Kalium leaves, asking if he has any intention of enrolling in the university. They cannot afford to lose a mage who possesses the extraordinary talents of chantless casting and high-speed spell execution. If he enrolls, they will spare no support in all possible aspects. Kalium observes the assistant's attitude is changing dramatically now. He definitely recognizes Kalium as a free man rather than disposable property. Many mages must have perished in the labyrinth eruption, so they desperately don't want to lose talented individuals. He asks what specific benefits enrollment would provide. The assistant begins explaining that first of all, Kalium's magical talent is genuinely outstanding. Someone suddenly enters the room, demanding to know if this is the person from all the rumors. The assistant addresses her as Professor Melanie, asking what she's doing here. She declares she came to personally see this genius mage with chantless casting and ultra-speed execution abilities. The instructor from the exit gate accompanies her as well, explaining she wanted to witness this with her own eyes. Kalium introduces himself politely. She says she likes the look in his eyes immediately. The admissions guide isn't particularly important right now, but he hasn't been a free man for very long. So she'll ask him one critical question: what does he believe is the true mission of a mage? He responds it's either to develop new magic or subjugate labyrinth monsters effectively. Melanie declares that's completely wrong. There exists a mission far more noble than either of those pursuits. The mission is to eliminate otherworld possessors entirely. His heart immediately sinks at this revelation. She explains that for quite a long time, there has been tremendous damage from the labyrinth's violent eruptions. To prevent this catastrophe, they have refused to give up the investigation for many years. As a result of meticulously studying the monster's movement patterns, directional behaviors, and the precise timing of labyrinth eruptions, there's only one logical explanation. It's because of the numerous possessors who have crossed over into this world. when these possessors don't enter the labyrinth for more than 2 weeks continuously. They discovered the labyrinth erupts specifically to eliminate them. She doesn't fully understand why this mechanism exists, but they must execute this duty for the sake of genuine peace. Kalium thinks it seems he's not destined to live peacefully, even as a free man. She continues, noting that according to his official record, he was a labyrinth adventurer from the far eastern city of Windham. He was tried and became a slave for the crime of murdering a colleague. He testified that the motive for the crime was that she was an otherworld possessor. This catches him completely off guard. She declares he'll fit right into their organization perfectly. To cut directly to the chase, he needs to join the Possessor Identification Club that she personally leads. She laughs, adding surely he's not a possessor himself, right? He doesn't say anything in response. She questions why he's remaining silent. He realizes internally he would have been in catastrophic trouble if he'd answered rashly he cannot lie due to still having the lie prevention magic actively cast on him. As Kalium continues his prolonged silence and obvious hesitation, Professor Melanie says with a cunning smile that it's extremely strange for Kalium not to answer such a simple, straightforward question. This dramatically increases Kalium's internal tension. He feels immense pressure as he desperately tries to formulate a suitable response, wondering what's the absolute best answer he can provide to escape this impossibly complicated situation. At this critical moment, Clarence suddenly enters the room to greet the professor. He points out that it might be premature to recruit Kalium into the club, especially since he's still disoriented and recovering after exiting the labyrinth under such stressful circumstances. Professor Melanie welcomes Clarence warmly and notes with a knowing smile that a diligent farmer never fails to achieve a bountiful harvest. She adds that Clarence's presence here also means Professor Islov has expressed interest in recruiting Kalium. Clarence interjects directly into the conversation, addressing Professor Melanie respectfully. He points out that Kalium's exceptionally clear and rapid skills in casting spells without unnecessary movements might make him far more suitable for labyrinth exploration tasks rather than the dangerous work of exterminating otherworld possessors. Kalium stands silently after this observation while Professor Melanie becomes visibly angry at Clarence's interference, feeling he's overstepping appropriate bounds in this recruitment conversation. Clarence continues speaking directly to Kalium, telling him with a genuinely kind smile that he doesn't need to make his decision immediately. He suggests Kalium think very carefully about Professor Islav's offer to join the Labyrinth Exploration Club instead. After the tense conversation finally ends, Kalium leaves feeling absolutely relieved that the lie detection spell has finally worn off completely. He resolves that if that spell is ever used on him again without consent, he might be forced to fight whoever's responsible. Kalium sighs with profound relief as he exits the room, but quickly remembers the severe danger this spell represents. He wonders to himself how such an incredibly convenient spell could possibly exist, feeling immense resentment at the fact that magic capable of forcing absolute truth exists in this world. In his mind, Kalium acknowledges that while a spell detecting lies could prove extremely useful for interrogating suspects, he also wonders if this spell possesses any hidden limitations or exploitable flaws. The more he contemplates it, the angrier he becomes. In any case, Kalium calms himself, confirming the lie detection spell has completely worn off now and he's finally safe from having his deepest secrets exposed. Clarence approaches him, apologizing for the delay in properly introducing himself. He identifies himself as a final-year mage at the Magic University. Clarence continues, stating he's the older brother of Bison, whom Kalium recently rescued. He expresses his profound gratitude to Kalium since it was thanks to him that he easily located his sibling's preserved body. Kalium calmly replies that he's now a free person as well, so it wasn't a complete loss for him either. Clarence gently apologizes to Kalium for walking beside him without saying anything for such a long time, explaining he thought it was highly inappropriate to speak while the spell remained active. Kalium expresses surprise at Clarence's consideration, assuring him that most civilized people consider the unauthorized use of this type of spell to be extremely rude. Clarence explains this spell isn't legally permitted to be used randomly on just anyone. It's only allowed during the formal evaluation of slave teams under specific circumstances. Kalium realizes internally that this spell has significant restrictions and conditional limitations. He feels immense anger toward Professor Melanie for her absolutely terrible timing in attempting to use it on him. Clarence apologizes for Professor Melanie's rudeness, explaining that not everyone in the university rejects the existence of other world possessors outright. He explains the complex political situation at the Magic University to Kalium, clarifying there are 3 main factions within the institution with drastically different orientations and stances regarding otherworld possessors. First, Professor Melanie's faction, which focuses heavily on identifying and eliminating otherworld possessors entirely. Second, Professor Islav's faction, which actually supports them and oversees labyrinth exploration operations. And finally, Professor Dalstream's faction, which believes in venerating and even revering otherworld possessors as special beings. Clarence explains that Professor Dalstream dedicates his research to studying ancient texts and magical manuscripts. His academic work deals extensively with the mysterious relationship between otherworld possessors and the Master of the Labyrinth. He adds that Professor Dalstream believes the Master of the Labyrinth possesses capabilities to control human souls directly, manipulating them and driving them into complete madness. Clarence continues, saying there exists only one type of mage theoretically capable of resisting the overwhelming madness of the Labyrinth Master. Dalstream believes this mage is specifically one of the otherworld possessors. Kalium becomes deeply shocked when he hears Clarence mention that this legendary mage is the turn-based system sorcerer. Clarence explains that ancient legends describe this sorcerer as someone who can literally stop the world itself and manipulate reality according to his absolute will. But he admits this seems frustratingly vague and ill-defined, with only minor fragmentary references appearing in ancient historical texts. Clarence adds that Professor Dalstream's faction represents the smallest group, consisting of only 3 dedicated members who rely on the tireless efforts of this limited number of mages. After the informative conversation ends, Clarence tells Kalium that his professor is currently waiting for him and invites him to enter the office. Inside the room, Professor Islav welcomes Kalium warmly and explains their club researches and investigates strange phenomena occurring inside the labyrinth extensively. Islav adds they study secret rooms, the complex ecosystem, and monster behavior patterns, but their primary focus currently centers on possessed adventurers specifically, not otherworld possessors. Islav shares his personal theory about back attack with Kalium, explaining he believes back attack exists in a state that's neither fully alive nor completely dead. He suspects back attack's soul remains present and trapped somewhere deep inside the labyrinth's hidden areas. Kalium thinks to himself that even if the professor has developed this insightful theory, he doesn't yet know anything about the resting place of souls that Kalium himself knows intimately well from his extensive past gaming experiences. Islav explicitly asks Kalium to seriously consider joining them and helping locate back attack's trapped soul. Kalium smiles confidently to himself, realizing he's already completed an extremely similar quest successfully in the game before. He begins genuinely considering accepting the offer because the entire matter seems relatively clear and manageable to him. But he hesitates slightly, recognizing that avoiding any dealings with Professor Melanie remains the absolute best option for his safety. At the same time, he feels that dealing extensively with Professor Dalstream's faction, which actively reveres otherworld possessors, would create an enormous burden on him personally. Kalium thinks it over very carefully and decides the optimal choice is definitely joining Islav's club. He asks Professor Islav if it would be possible for him to form his own independent team to carry out the club's exploration activities. Islav appears genuinely surprised by this unusual request and responds with a slight smile that it's the first time he's ever heard such a thing. most students strongly prefer joining an advanced experienced team to ensure their maximum safety. But he adds there's absolutely no objection to it in principle if that's what Kalium truly wants. Kalium thanks Professor Islov sincerely and formally agrees to join the club immediately. After finalizing this arrangement, Kalium is guided to his private room in the magic school's dormitory facility. Upon his arrival, the assistant informs him this is his new personal room and advises him to rest well due to his previous exhausting ordeals. Kalium enters the room feeling very impressed by the exceptional level of comfort and luxury, admitting to himself this place is significantly better than anything he was accustomed to before. Kalium curiously asks the assistant if he's permitted to host his future team members in this private room. The assistant replies that officially it's not allowed under standard regulations. But the assistant smiles slightly and tells him that if everyone always followed every rule strictly, she'd be working non-stop without breaks. So Kalium can do as he pleases as long as he remains careful and discreet. Kalium mentally labels her as pragmatically cunning. After the assistant departs, Kalium heads to the private bathroom in his room to take a shower and finally relax, feeling genuinely at ease after everything he's been through recently. While relaxing in the warm bath, he begins recalling the incredibly stressful events of the day, his desperate morning escape from the labyrinth with Urinal, and his terrifying life or death battle with Back Attack. He then recalls gaining his hard-earned freedom, successfully completing his dangerous mission, joining the Magic University, and becoming a member of Professor Islov's club. He feels absolutely amazed at how rapidly all these monumental events unfolded. Kalium can't believe all of this happened within a single exhausting day. He begins planning what he'll accomplish tomorrow. He decides to visit the 24-hour library to gather critical information first. After that, he'll go to the admissions office to get Urinal back on his team. Despite all these plans, Kalium decides to stop overthinking for now and just rest properly, admitting to himself he still has an incredibly long way to go. The next day, Kalium feels utterly exhausted while attending his classes in the lecture hall after spending the entire night studying extensively in the library. He assures himself this exhaustion is infinitely better than being subjected to the lie detection spell again. Suddenly, Professor Dalstream approaches him to deliver a greeting with a mysterious smile. He introduces himself as the professor responsible for teaching first-year students a new spell called Memorize. Professor Dalstream explains to the gathered students that this spell represents a special ability enabling a mage to sign a contract with Wizard, the god of wisdom himself. The professor adds that whoever signs this divine contract receives a special memory book that allows for the memorization and storage of magic spells efficiently. Professor Dalstream begins demonstrating the spell practically for all the students, explaining each student will receive a memory book they can use to memorize a specific number of spells. Kalium activates the Memorize spell as instructed, which grants him his own personal memory book. After activating the spell successfully, Kalium discovers the number of spells he can memorize depends entirely on the mage's current level. Since he's at level 5, he has 3 available slots to fill. The professor explains to the students they're able to learn and memorize as many different spells as there are slots in their books. The professor further explains students can also create entirely new spells by combining different slots creatively. He then announces the assistant, Scarlet, will teach them this advanced technique herself. Scarlet looks genuinely surprised at being suddenly assigned this teaching task, while the professor apologizes, reasoning his back is hurting terribly today. The assistant, Scarlet, had thought the first day of classes would be relatively easy and straightforward. But she realizes Professor Dalstream is still completely exhausted despite everything. After feeling tired herself, she announces to everyone they'll be relocating to the magical training grounds immediately and asks all students to follow her there. In the training grounds, Scarlet begins explaining to the students that the number of magic slots varies significantly depending on each student's individual abilities and potential. She clarifies that when they have 2 slots available, they can combine spells together. Scarlet explains if they combine 2 level 1 spells successfully, the result produces a level 2 spell. This advanced method is called bookbinding, a feature allowing them to register more powerful spells without consuming an additional precious slot. She tells them it's also theoretically possible to combine 3 spells together simultaneously, but this method proves extremely difficult and dangerously unstable. Its success rate remains very low, although the resulting power is absolutely devastating. The assistant accompanying the professor demonstrates practically how 3 different spells combine into a single unified one, naming the spell Triple Attribute Strike. It's capable of inflicting massive damage that combines the distinct properties of 3 different elemental spells into a single overwhelming attack. The students watch in complete amazement at the sheer power of this devastating spell, realizing the tremendous strength and impact of this type of advanced magic. The assistant appears visibly impressed by the results of the magical demonstration she presented to the students. She assures them that if they work hard and practice diligently, they can achieve results similar to what she just showed them. She then presents them with a comprehensive list of level 1 spells to choose from and explains they can purchase the spells they select from the magic bookstore using their stipend. She also tells them they can consult her directly in the magic tower if they need additional advice or guidance. While checking the students' choices carefully, the assistant becomes surprised that Kalium already has 3 magic slots available. She's very astonished by his strange and unconventional choice of spells. Kalium calmly asks her if his selection isn't allowed under the rules. The assistant becomes flustered, quickly assuring him that's absolutely not the case. But it's definitely a very unusual and questionable choice indeed. The assistant looks at Kalium's selection sheet with great bewilderment and confusion, wondering about the logic that made him choose this bizarre combination Dust Cloud, Heatwave, and the utility spell Humidity. The assistant tells him with mounting anger and tension that the third spell, Humidity, is a utility spell used exclusively to increase environmental moisture levels. She demands to know why he would possibly want to learn something so seemingly useless. Professor Dalstream suddenly enters the training area, demanding to know the cause of all this commotion and excessive noise. The assistant becomes flustered and hands him Kalium's selection sheet, asserting she doesn't understand the reason behind his completely illogical choices. Professor Dalstream calmly tells the assistant to let Kalium proceed with these unusual choices, emphasizing that research and experimentation represent the most important virtues at the Magic University. Professor Dalstream smiles confidently as he tells Kalium he genuinely looks forward to seeing the results of his experiments and choices, wishing him the best of luck. In the evening, Kalium returns to his room in the Magic University's dormitory facility. Kalium sits relaxed in his private room, registering his 3 chosen magic spells in his memory book. He then decides to begin the bookbinding process to combine the spells creatively. Kalium succeeds in combining the Dust Cloud and Heatwave spells perfectly, obtaining the new level 2 spell called Dust Explosion. Kalium smiles with deep satisfaction, absolutely certain the Dust Explosion spell he combined is significantly stronger than standard level 1 spells like Fireball. Even though the basic component spells he used were relatively low-powered individually, Kalium also combines Dust Cloud and Heatwave again in a different configuration. This time he obtains the level 2 spell Heatwave, which causes direct damage and leads to sunstroke as a devastating negative effect on opponents. Finally, Kalium combines all 3 spells together simultaneously: Dust Cloud, Heatwave, and Humidity, obtaining a level 2 spell called Thundercloud. After finishing his work, Kalium contemplates his memory book, which is now filled with the 3 powerful spells he combined. He feels tremendous excitement about these incredible results. Kalium then decides he needs a quick practical test with his hourglass ability, and he'll need to purchase a special lightning element magic staff to utilize it more efficiently in combat. Kalium feels great relief that he's finished registering the spells successfully and decides he must now stop to accomplish the most important personal task for him. Meanwhile, Urinal is being held at the Adventurers Guild in confinement. One of the guards rudely calls out to Urinal, ordering her to get out of the cell immediately. Urinal hears voices from outside discussing her situation, describing her as a slave who was arrested on serious charges of drug trafficking. Urinal is being led away to be sold very soon, and she thinks in absolute despair about what kind of people would pay money to purchase someone like her. Urinal wonders sadly as she climbs the stairs if she'll ever be fortunate enough to meet good people again. She fears being dragged back into the labyrinth without any guarantee of coming out alive this time. Urinal stands hesitantly in front of the door, announcing she'll enter now, but she feels anxious and extremely scared of what might happen to her. Urinal opens the door, overcome with despair, and begins talking to herself with deep sadness about how much she misses Kalium desperately. But suddenly she hears a familiar voice behind the door and finds Kalium waiting for her, which leaves her completely shocked and extremely surprised. Kalium stands confidently and declares he couldn't possibly abandon a companion he risked his life with, which moves Urinal deeply by his presence and his sudden rescue of her. Kalium extends his hand to Urinal with a warm smile and promises her with great confidence that he will make her a free person. He invites her to come with him. Urinal walks beside him outside and expresses her concern because she's still in significant debt and not completely free yet. Kalium assures her he knows that very well, and there are 2 or 3 viable ways to make her completely free. He adds he'll first collect the fee for recovering Bison's body as the initial step in his plan. Kalium appears surprised when he learns from Clarence that he only received 100 gold pieces of the agreed upon amount. Clarence explains the reason the Magic University might confiscate the entire payment if it were paid in full before a person officially gains their complete freedom, so he preferred to hold on to the remaining amount temporarily for safety. Clarence adds it's still too early for Urinal to receive the rest of the money directly. He explains she'll receive most of what remains of her calculated share soon, but she must stay in her designated quarters until that official time arrives. Kalium continues speaking to Urinal, telling her there's another viable option to pay off her accumulated debts. She could accompany him on his next dangerous journey into the labyrinth again. By doing so successfully, she'd be able to pay off the rest of her debts and become a completely free person. After that explanation, Kalium points to a bow he's carrying and tells Urinal this bow is a gift for her, a sign he's giving her the choice to continue with him or make another decision entirely. He wonders to himself if Urinal would choose to leave after becoming free. Urinal hesitates for a brief moment, then looks at Kalium and asks if he intends to continue his dangerous adventures inside the labyrinth. Kalium assures Urinal he will definitely continue the adventure, explaining to her that although he might not be very useful initially, he'll try to help her more than once. In a powerful, emotional moment, Urinal impulsively and enthusiastically asks if she can continue accompanying him, declaring she wants to stay by his side and be his companion. Kalium smiles happily at Urinal's heartfelt request and tells her they will indeed continue together. He also explains he's already found another member for their team. Urinal appears very surprised at how quickly Kalium found another person for the team and eagerly demands he introduce her to this mysterious person right away. Kalium gently warns her not to raise her expectations too high. Later that evening, as they're walking together, Kalium explains he asked the 3rd team member to come meet them in his room. Urinal begins wondering excitedly who this new person could possibly be. The two hear the sound of footsteps approaching the room steadily. Urinal begins feeling excited and expectant, while Kalium is also eager to see her reaction to the new member. The door opens slowly and behind it appears the awaited person. As soon as she sees him, Urinal becomes extremely shocked by the person's identity. Urinal's face shows pure shock as she sees Back Attack standing before her, and she begins screaming hysterically while Kalium quickly tries to calm her down. Kalium explains to Urinal that he used the Summon Spirit Scroll he received from Professor Islav to bring Back-Attack back to life. Back-Attack now stands before them as if nothing traumatic had happened. Back-Attack feels tired and greets Urinal weakly, while Urinal remains tense and afraid of seeing him again in this state. Urinal shows clear hesitation when she indicates she might have to leave the place immediately. But Back-Attack quickly cuts her off with a single decisive word, completely refusing that option. Later, Kalium reads from Professor Islav's extensive research about a major catastrophic incident that occurred 12 years ago in the labyrinth city of Sohan. The research reveals significant loss of life due to a massive explosion in the labyrinth, with an estimated 3,000 monsters emerging from it, including dangerous abyssal-type monsters. The research findings show the target of that explosion was a possessor known as Henry, who lived in the poor districts of Sohan. Traces of his desperate resistance to the monsters were discovered afterward. Among Professor Islav's research, a mysterious message left by Henry before his death appeared etched into stone. The message was written in a language that only soul bearers or otherworlders could understand. The message specifically warned against trusting the Magic University. Kalium wonders with growing concern why Henry would leave a message that only otherworlders could read, suspecting the message might be a warning about the Magic University itself. What was most suspicious was that the place most heavily damaged by the labyrinth explosion was specifically the Magic University. Kalium begins wondering if the heavy losses the university suffered were because they fought courageously on the front lines against the monsters. Kalium wonders to himself if the Magic University was attacked by monsters after Henry was attacked in the poor districts. Kalium decides he must be extremely cautious and delve deeper into understanding the facts about this mysterious message and its connection to the Magic University and Professor Melanie in particular. At that moment, Urinal shyly enters Kalium's room and asks him hesitantly if she could sleep there tonight. Kalium notices her hair is somewhat disheveled. As soon as she enters the room, Urinal suddenly notices Back-Attack behind her and screams in shock and extreme fear. She very nervously asks Kalium to let her cut Back-Attack's strange hair immediately. Kalium refuses her request and explains she must accept Back-Attack's presence if she wants to stay in his room. He tells her he has another important condition as well. Urinal appears surprised when she sees a set of scrolls that Kalium takes out in front of her. He then explains he bought these scrolls from the black market that morning, which makes surprise evident on Urinal's face. She doesn't initially understand the reason for this action. Kalium presents a mysterious scroll he purchased from the black market that morning and tells her with a mysterious smile that he has many things he wants to test, asking if she's ready to help him with that. Meanwhile, Professor Melanie and Professor Islav are discussing a new project that's taking up a significant amount of their time. Melanie confirms the person who wrote the warning message addressed to soul bearers and otherworlders was killed shortly after. The person mentioned in that message was an acquaintance of Professor Islav, a student at the university named Kalium. Professor Melanie questions Kalium with clear suspicion, addressing her colleague Professor Islav about Kalium's strange abilities, which might not be explainable by genius alone. Melanie then recalls how Kalium acted during the battle with the poisonous labyrinth spider when he stopped the poison sacs explosion with a precise ice attack at the last possible moment, questioning if that performance was just ordinary skill. Melanie continues expressing her doubts, astonished at how two slaves of their level with very limited resources could kill Back-Attack and escape the labyrinth successfully. She considers this illogical and not normal. Melanie asserts with clear confidence that all evidence suggests Kalium might be a possessed person, and it's their duty as academics to investigate this thoroughly. For his part, Professor Islav expresses his reservations about these assumptions, believing they can't make fateful decisions based on mere unconfirmed suspicions. However, Melanie clarifies she doesn't want to go that far either, but she reminds Islav the Magic University is currently suffering from a severe shortage of mages, and therefore they must be extremely cautious. Melanie adds in a harsh tone they've suffered enough from their previous loss of control 12 years ago when they allowed just one person to escape. She affirms she will continue to monitor Kalium closely. For his part, Professor Islov sits alone in his office contemplating the situation with concern, realizing he doesn't want to interfere with Melanie's plans, but he desperately needs someone as strong as Kalium to explore the depths of the labyrinth. Meanwhile, Kalium begins searching for new members for his team. Surprised the number of applicants exceeds his expectations. He finds it strange because people usually don't like participating in dangerous journeys inside the labyrinth. While waiting for the interviews, Urinal and Back Attack are seen wandering among the crowds, with Back Attack looking somewhat confused in his first public appearance after being brought back to life. While Kalium tries to hide the fact that Back Attack was summoned by spirits, Urinal is amazed by the strangeness of the situation when Back Attack starts fiddling with her hair, which clearly makes her tense. Kalium then announces to the applicants the goal of their next journey is to find the resting place of Back Attack's soul and work on reviving him completely. Kalium explains to the applicants that whoever wants to join must be prepared to fight on the front lines. To prove it, they must demonstrate their strength by lifting a heavy barrel placed in front of them. Kalium thinks to himself that a physical test is the best solution because he can't verify everyone's skills in detail. He has to rely on this practical method to prove their strength. Kalium then continues speaking to the applicants, saying whoever succeeds in the first test will have to prove their combat skills directly afterward. Kalium asks firmly and clearly who wishes to be the first to test their strength in front of everyone. The applicants hesitate and begin looking at each other with obvious concern. Kalium notices some applicants have started to withdraw for fear of the test, realizing many of them came only because of Back Attack's reputation and weren't prepared for a dangerous adventure. Urinal tells Kalium with concern she doesn't know how to use combat skills well. Kalium calmly reassures her, saying it's all right and she'll learn quickly. Some adventurers begin objecting to Kalium's strictness in his selections, mocking him for going to the labyrinth only once and acting as if he were superior to them. Suddenly, a strange person decisively intervenes, telling the complainers to make way for him if they're done talking. The adventurers feel tense when they see the new applicant, a lizardman paladin from the Church of Nathaniel. They wonder why someone like him would be interested in joining a team working on the first floor. Kalium wonders to himself if this person is aiming to monitor him and his companions, especially since the Church of Nathaniel refuses to deal with spirit summoners like Back Attack. The lizardman paladin begins speaking loudly, objecting to the inclusion of the possessed fox, referring to Back Attack. He says he can't tolerate the presence of such a creature among them. But he's interrupted by another adventurer who enters the area confidently and introduces himself, saying he's a well-known explorer from the third floor, which sparks everyone's interest and attention. This new adventurer thinks to himself that if Kalium can revive Back Attack, he might be able to find his own lost friend, so he shows great interest in joining Kalium's team. Meanwhile, Kalium is wondering internally if he'll be able to control the reaction of the lizardman paladin, who's rejecting the presence of the spirit summon. Suddenly, another large person bursts into the place, shouting to be allowed to participate in the interview as well. The bald man is extremely flustered as he begs for a chance to be interviewed, while one of the attendees looks at him wondering if he's really trying to compete with them. Meanwhile, the bald man insists to himself he must join this group no matter the cost. This person introduces himself in a loud voice as a monk. He insists clearly and loudly that Back Attack was his companion, his true companion. The monk begins speaking about what happened in the past, saying everything that happened to Back Attack was his own personal fault. The monk explains Back Attack was known for being the strongest adventurer on the first floor and stayed with their team for 3 full years. Even though his abilities surpassed everyone else's, he chose to stay with them simply for their comfort and camaraderie. However, as the monk and the rest of the team felt they might be hindering Back Attack's development, In addition to the growing pressure from other adventurers who aspired to have him on their teams, they finally decided to let him leave for the sake of his future. The monk explains Back Attack agreed with a smile, as if he completely understood their position, even though it was a painful decision for him. 3 weeks after that, their team was ambushed by a group of plunderers who tried to trap them inside the labyrinth by sealing the gate on them. Only one member of the team managed to escape and call for help from the guild. At that moment, Back Attack entered through the new labyrinth portal that had recently opened. Back Attack had lost all his companions in that battle and was seriously injured, on the verge of giving up and despairing of life. But he suddenly changed and decided to open the gate and go out to fight fiercely. The monk says that at that moment, Back Attack began slaughtering all the thieves brutally, and he himself was so terrified that he fled the scene alone. Therefore, the monk asserts he has a strong reason to join Kalium's team and participate in the journey to find Back Attack's soul. He then adds his information about the labyrinth, stating they might sometimes encounter a powerful roaming boss on the first level, though it's usually found in deeper levels. Kalium appears surprised by that and says to himself it's the first time he's heard of a powerful roaming boss appearing on this floor. The monk continues explaining that since that day, he hasn't stopped blaming himself. If they hadn't let Back Attack leave the team, things would not have reached this unfortunate state. The monk approaches Back Attack, asking him with regret and remorse if he sold his soul in the labyrinth while he himself fled and left him alone in that difficult time. In a deeply emotional display, the monk kneels on the ground, apologizing tearfully and asking Back Attack never to forgive him for what he did. At that time, the other adventurers begin arguing about selecting team members. One of them enthusiastically suggests they choose the monk as he deserves a chance to correct his mistake. The Lizardman Paladin strongly rejects the attempt to emotionally influence such an important decision and insists the evaluation must be fair and objective. The Lizardman Paladin challenges the monk, saying if he can break the heavy wooden barrel, he'll allow him to join as well. The monk steps forward toward the barrel with confidence, while Kalium watches him skeptically, aware that monks usually don't possess great physical strength, even if they're frontline fighters. But the monk surprises everyone with his tremendous strength when he easily shatters the barrel, announcing to everyone he's not just an ordinary monk, but an exceptional strength monk. With that, Kalium announces his team is officially formed and advises the monk named Amos to prepare well before their next adventure. Amos agrees and says he'll be away from home for a while, so he needs to discuss matters with his wife before leaving. Kalium asks Urinal to return to the dormitory with Back Attack for the time being. Urinal worriedly asks him why and what he's going to do. Kalium calmly replies he's going to visit the Magic University for a bit because he needs to finish some important things before starting their adventure in the labyrinth. As he walks, Kalium thinks that if there really is a group of possessed people otherworlders inside the Magic University, that would represent the greatest danger to him at the moment. Meanwhile, Professor Islav is thinking about Kalium's actions, wondering about his unconventional choice of spells and his acceptance of this difficult mission. The professor seems convinced Kalium is planning something significant. In reality, Kalium is indeed planning a complex conspiracy to convince everyone he's not a possessed person in order to hide his true secret. Kalium decides to himself that to survive in this dangerous environment, he has to make one thing absolutely clear to everyone, that he's not a possessed person, but simply an exceptional genius. After deep thought, Kalium decides he needs the help of a specific person to execute his plan properly. Suddenly, Professor Melanie bursts into the place, rushing toward Kalium and demanding angrily if it's true he really succeeded in binding magic spells together. Kalium replies calmly and confidently that he indeed succeeded in binding the spells in the magic book, which surprises Melanie. She says in astonishment that most people fail at that, but Kalium seems very lucky. At that moment, Kalium decides to provoke Professor Melanie a little and proudly tells her he hasn't only succeeded in binding a pair of spells, but even 3 spells at once. This leaves Melanie in a state of shock and intense anger. Melanie becomes furious and shouts, accusing Kalium of mocking or underestimating her. She considers this impossible unless the person was possessed or blessed by the god of wisdom. Professor Dalstream tries to calm the situation and suggests Kalium might truly be blessed by the god. But Melanie refuses to listen and says this is no time for jokes. Melanie angrily declares that even binding 2 spells is extremely difficult, and for her, binding 3 is impossible unless Kalium was possessed. She decides she'll use the lie detection spell again to prove it. Melanie explicitly threatens Kalium, saying if he proves not to be possessed, she'll apologize and compensate him. But if he proves to be possessed, she'll kill him on the spot. Kalium replies coolly, telling Melanie to start the test immediately, pointing out she's already decided the outcome in advance. Melanie activates the lie detection spell and demands that Kalium confess. Kalium replies in a shocking and direct manner, "I am a possessed person from another world," in front of everyone, which astonishes all who are present. At that moment, Kalium activates his hourglass ability, which stops time and gives him a chance to move freely. He begins planning how to turn the situation to his advantage. Kalium feels relieved he's finally able to use his secondary character ability that stops time. He thinks he needs to convince everyone at least once. Kalium begins observing everyone's reactions carefully, trying to uncover any potential collusion among those present at the Magic University, focusing his attention on Melanie and Islav in particular. He notices Professor Dalstream seems completely uninterested in the matter, while a new mysterious person appears who's watching him closely, which makes him suspicious. Kalium smiles sarcastically and decides to start by lying deliberately to confuse Melanie. He announces in a loud, sarcastic voice that his previous adventure in the labyrinth was wonderfully and indescribably exciting. Suddenly, Kalium feels intense pain from activating the lie under the influence of the spell, which results in a violent magical backlash against him. Professor Islav immediately intervenes, declaring this reaction was a false positive and Kalium is not possessed at all. Melanie feels extremely confused by this result and realizes with difficulty that Kalium is indeed not possessed as she initially thought. Kalium apologizes to Melanie in his thoughts, explaining it wasn't personal, but he was deeply hurt by the use of the lie detection spell in this manner. A week later, Urinal meets with Kalium and asks him with concern if his wounds have fully healed. Kalium replies with a smile that he's fine now, admitting to himself he remained unconscious for 2 days after activating his ability with no clear gains. Kalium remembers Melanie apologized to him profusely and sincerely gave him valuable compensation for what happened between them. The gift Kalium received from Melanie was the legendary Compass of Greed, a magical tool capable of pinpointing the locations of treasures inside the labyrinth, which makes him excited for his next adventure. After that, Kalium makes sure the team is ready for their next adventure, calling on each team member Urinal, Amos, and Back Attack to confirm their readiness. After everyone confirms they're ready, the team sets off excitedly toward the labyrinth gate to begin the new adventure. At the labyrinth gate, Kalium notices the other adventurers are talking secretly. He worriedly asks Urinal if she can hear what they're saying. Suddenly, a strange adventurer approaches Kalium's team, calling out to them gently and asking if they have a minute to talk before they enter the portal. Kalium begins to doubt the motives of this new adventurer and thinks to himself the situation has become complicated. He must be extremely cautious from now on. When Kalium asks the strange adventurer why he's interested in them, the adventurer replies with a smiling, deceptive face that he's just concerned about the safety of new adventurers. The adventurer then continues with a cunning look, pointing out the labyrinth is full of thieves. He slightly suggests he should hold onto their valuables for them until they return, but the monk Amos objects forcefully and with clear anger, telling him their team leader, Kalium, is very smart and capable of easily dealing with any novice thieves who try to rob them. The adventurer quickly backs down, flustered and trying to justify his position. claiming he only wanted to advise them and warn them of the dangers. Kalium grows bored of the conversation and decides the team should proceed immediately into the labyrinth, telling the adventurer to do as he pleases. After they move on, Urinal feels worried and whispers to Kalium that those people might be the very thieves they were warned about. But Kalium smiles confidently and reassures her, explaining that even if they follow them, Urinal will be able to easily detect their presence in advance. However, the team soon hears the voice of the previous adventurer screaming for their help from inside the labyrinth, urgently asking for assistance. Kalium stands with his team, alert and cautious, and replies in a loud voice, questioning how they can trust him when he's suddenly asking for help. In his mind, Kalium thinks coldly that if this were a game, he would have killed him without a second thought. Then he asks him in a clear voice if he's trying to steal their belongings. The suspicious adventurer replies with clear confusion, admitting the rudeness of his previous actions. But he says he didn't know they would be attacked by an unknown assailant inside the labyrinth. Suddenly, Urinal notices and informs Kalium that someone is running quickly toward them from the front. The adventurer begins screaming in terror, trying to warn them of the coming danger, indicating someone or something is chasing them. Kalium quickly asks Urinal how many people are coming, and she answers in fear that there are 4 people. At that moment, a surprise attack is suddenly launched at them from the front, causing extreme tension within the team's ranks. However, the adventurer who had been screaming in panic suddenly stops, then turns toward Kalium with a malicious smile on his face and asks for his opinion on his performance. Amos realizes the situation and shouts out to Kalium, warning him of a spell the deceitful adventurer cast called Jester's Spell Disruptor. Kalium quickly reassures Amos he's fine and just tells him to look ahead and watch out for the incoming danger. At a critical moment, Kalium activates his special ability, the Hourglass, to freeze time and stop the attack that almost hit him. He begins thinking quickly about how to handle the situation. Kalium begins calmly analyzing the situation, realizing the attacking mage played the role of bait within their ranks. Kalium realizes the attackers wanted to target him and Urinal directly, instead of confronting the powerful monk Amos. Kalium explains to himself his opponents used the spell disruptor skill to turn his attack into a weak random spell instead of a powerful one. He adds their plan included paralyzing Urinal first because she's weak in direct combat, then confronting Amos alone. Kalium thinks to himself he made a mistake by letting them move first. But he decides to act decisively this time and immediately launches a lightning shock spell at his opponents without hesitation. But Kalium realizes there's a possibility of a grave error. If he doesn't kill the attacking mage immediately, it could result in Urinal's death. The ability's countdown begins decreasing rapidly, but Kalium is confident he has enough time to act thanks to the Hourglass. Kalium takes out a special magic scroll he prepared beforehand and decides to use it immediately to limit the effect of the skills the opponent used. Kalium has only 3 seconds left, so he shouts sharply, declaring the opponent will die in moments, and launches the lightning shock spell. The spell hits his opponents directly, causing their immediate collapse and complete defeat. Kalium stands triumphantly over his defeated opponents while one of them asks him in shock and trembling what happened and how he managed to do it. Kalium replies calmly and with complete confidence, thanking them for what they did and pointing out they indeed proven his suspicions correct. After confirming his suspicions about the group that attacked them, Kalium coolly declares his method of dealing with them was correct, adding that death is the only answer for their kind. One of the attackers tries to ask Kalium to wait, but Kalium ignores him completely and immediately casts a dust explosion spell to finish them off quickly and definitively. One of the gang members is surprised by what happened and begins screaming in confusion, wondering why the spell disruptor he was relying on didn't work. At that moment, Kalium activates his special ability, the Hourglass, to stop time and assess the situation more clearly, contemplating the enemy's tactics. Kalium then notices a dwarf among the group who seems to be manipulating a puppet's body that moves with him. Kalium understands why Urinal heard 4 sets of footsteps earlier. Kalium immediately begins executing a counterplan using a lightning shock spell while asking Urinal to fire her arrow directly at the dwarf. A powerful explosion occurs as a result of Kalium and Urinal's combined attacks, causing several gang members to fall and seriously injuring the others. At the same time, the remaining gang members begin panicking, desperately trying to understand what's happening around them amidst the chaos. The monk Amos approaches one of the surviving gang members who's begging him to let him live, but Amos coldly reminds him of Kalium's earlier words. Kalium continues in a decisive tone, affirming his position by saying he won't hesitate again. He casts lightning shock once more to eliminate the enemy without mercy. After the fight ends, the team looks extremely exhausted, especially Urinal, who was so terrified she couldn't use her hearing skills effectively this time. But Kalium urges her to be strong, assuring her she must become a reliable companion and be proud of herself. A short time later, Kalium wakes up, apologizing for having fallen asleep, thinking the magic scroll he used earlier had some side effects. Amos assures him he's fine. Kalium notices Amos has begun examining the equipment they seized from the gang that attacked them and suggests he choose what he wants to keep. Kalium decides to take only the equipment and consumables they really need, reasoning anything of monetary value would be too heavy and difficult to carry. Among the loot Kalium decides to keep are 5 medium-quality healing potions, a time reduction elixir, and a valuable scroll for resurrecting corpses. He considers these items of great importance for their next adventure. Kalium uses telekinesis to arrange the items and carry them easily, which makes it easier for them to prepare for departure. Kalium asks the team to hurry up and finish their preparations to leave the area. Urinal confirms her readiness. But she suddenly stops Kalium and tells him she hears a strange sound coming from his pocket. Kalium appears a little surprised, then takes out the legendary compass of greed that Professor Melanie gave him earlier. The team remembers the compass is able to detect treasure chests in the labyrinth. Urinal wonders if they can now rely on it. Kalium confirms this is accurate, but clarifies that fully resurrecting back attack remains his absolute priority at the moment. He asks Urinal not to overreact to every single sound she detects, which makes her feel somewhat embarrassed. She admits hearing is her only real skill. With a gentle smile, Kalium reassures her she's already performing exceptionally well and shouldn't worry about reporting every minor sound she picks up. When she mentions hearing the sound of water, Kalium's attention immediately sharpens. He insists on knowing the precise location of this sound quickly. Urinal leads them directly to the source, which turns out to be the Spring of Blessings, a rare mystical spring that appears randomly throughout the labyrinth. According to the legends Kalium recalls, this spring grants special powers to adventurers who drink from it, thanks to ancient remnants from other worlds that the spring has absorbed over time. Kalium thanks Urinal warmly for discovering this incredible spring, which makes her feel very proud and joyful. He explains to the team that obtaining a skill from the Spring of Blessings isn't a simple matter. Specific conditions must be met first, such as personal stat requirements and weapon mastery levels, which prompts the team to prepare seriously for this opportunity. Kalium asks Amos if he's ever attempted using the Spring of Blessings with his current weapon before. Amos replies he hasn't. Kalium encourages him to try the spring, assuring him it's absolutely worth attempting. Amos approaches the spring and dips his weapon into the mystical waters. He's immediately surprised to obtain a powerful new skill called Smashing Gaia, which makes him shout with joy and amazement at its devastating power. Kalium asks Urinal to try as well since she's at the same level as Amos and should easily acquire a similar skill. Indeed, Urinal obtains an amazing skill called Triple Shot and feels very happy with the experiment's results. She then advises Kalium to try it as well. Kalium hesitates for a moment, aware that mages are usually excluded from the spring's blessings, but his intense curiosity pushes him to attempt it anyway. When Kalium submerges his face in the spring water, a strange and clear information screen appears before him, sparking his astonishment and questions about what's happening. Information materializes before Kalium, confirming his wisdom level has surpassed 10, and therefore he's able to choose an introductory skill related to his hourglass abilities. The first skill that appears is Direction Modifier, a skill allowing him to move his hand or staff without consuming action points, though unable to physically interact with objects. The second skill is Time Trader, allowing him to consume 1 second from the hourglass to reduce a skill's cooldown or remove 1 minute from a negative effect. The third skill is Memory Book Editor, which allows swapping spell slots within his magic book during his turn. The fourth skill is Mind Controller, an active skill, allowing him to control a lower-level team member regardless of their trust level, with the risk of a temporary madness state if the command contradicts the person's beliefs. Kalium is genuinely surprised by the power of the 4 skills presented, making it extremely difficult for him to choose the best one. After brief consideration, Kalium decides to choose the Direction Modifier skill, considering it the most useful for his current circumstances. After making his selection, the team asks Kalium with concern if he's okay, as they thought he nearly drowned. He assures them he's perfectly fine. Kalium begins testing his new hourglass skill immediately. A message appears confirming the skill's activation and that it's his turn. Kalium notices using the skill costs him no action points whatsoever, which pleases him tremendously. The team decides to leave and continue their journey toward their main goal, reviving back attack, which has now become significantly easier thanks to these newly acquired skills. As they're walking, Urinal notices something strange that Amos is carrying and asks him what it is. He replies with a warm smile that it's a charm from his wife. Urinal appears surprised and asks him curiously how they met, especially since he's a monk and married. Amos replies they first met at the Adventurers Guild and his wife was actually the one who formed the team with Back Attack. Amos also explains his wife knows the enormous debt he owes to Back Attack, which is why she allowed him to join this mission without any financial compensation. Urinal is amazed by the kindness of Amos' wife and describes her as a truly wonderful person. But Kalium feels suspicious of Amos' words and worried about the monk's reference to wanting to return alive. Such statements usually indicate a bad fate in adventures. Suddenly, Back Attack starts running forward hysterically while screaming, which puzzles the team. Urinal wonders what's chasing him. Kalium quickly realizes the reason for Back Attack's sudden behavior and explains to the team he's found his soul's location and is heading toward it instinctively. Kalium confirms Back Attack's soul is located in a place situated between floors, a floor known as Floor 1.5. Urinal is very surprised by this revelation and asks him with great bewilderment about this strange floor. Amos confirms what Kalium said and mentions he's heard old rumors about the existence of such a place in the labyrinth. Kalium confirms this is precisely where Back Attack's soul is being held. Before Kalium can finish his sentence, Urinal becomes flustered and tells him with concern she might have stepped on something again, which causes the area around them to start collapsing. Amos tries alerting the team of the need to escape immediately, but Kalium reassures everyone and asks them to stay calm, pointing out he anticipated something like this happening and thanking Urinal for finding the new entrance. A mysterious entrance to Floor 1.5 appears before them. Kalium decides this is their new destination and tells the team they should head there now. When they arrive at that strange floor, they're surprised to find it resembles a very old village. Urinal comments in amazement, it looks as if it were a village from an old game, which makes the team very curious to know what this mysterious place holds for them. As the team enters the mysterious floor, they encounter creatures called Boundary Guardians, level 1.5 beings that usually move in large groups, making them extremely dangerous to confront. Kalium assures his team that if they remain calm and avoid attracting attention, it should be possible to get past these creatures without problems. Kalium reiterates that a direct battle would not be in their favor whatsoever. They must quickly and quietly find the jar containing Back Attack's soul and escape fast. Kalium points to a distant spot and says that's the likely location of Back Attack's soul jar. The team begins approaching with extreme caution. The team reaches a room filled with jars that usually contain the souls of adventurers, but they discover all these jars are completely empty. Urinal asks worriedly how they'll be able to find the jar containing Back Attack's soul among all these containers. Kalium asserts the jar they're looking for will surely be in a prominent place. Kalium notices a jar glowing with a strong green light in a high position and points to it, declaring that's definitely the jar containing Back Attack's soul. He confirms that as soon as they take the jar, the monsters will move in an attempt to retrieve it. He suggests they quickly transport the jar to the first floor to revive Back Attack. But Urinal suddenly alerts Kalium to the presence of another glowing jar nearby, which surprises and concerns him. Kalium is very surprised and wonders about the reason for another jar containing another adventurer's soul in this mysterious place. He feels very worried and wonders if this means another adventurer was recently killed on this mysterious floor. Kalium begins thinking quickly, reviewing the possibilities in his mind, believing the appearance of a new jar means something unexpected is happening in this area of the labyrinth. Meanwhile, an injured adventurer suddenly appears, running toward them and shouting to warn his companion of the danger approaching. The injured adventurer tries convincing his companion to leave him and flee to save his life. But his companion insists on staying with him and protecting him. Suddenly, the lizardman paladin Bernard, whom they met before, appears and begins shouting angrily at Kalium, questioning how he could have left the door open. He points out the great danger they're now in because of that action. Bernard explains the monsters have started attacking, and they must prepare for battle immediately, which angers and annoys Kalium. He tells Bernard they're the ones who caused all these problems. Bernard replies he came on orders from the church, and their meeting here might be the divine will of the goddess Nathaniel, which makes Kalium even angrier at his actions. Bernard continues speaking to Kalium, convinced their meeting in this place isn't a coincidence but part of a divine plan inspired by Nathaniel, aimed at them overcoming this trial together. He asserts everything that happened is part of Nathaniel's divine providence, which makes Kalium marvel at this absolute faith in destiny. Another adventurer interrupts them, shouting it's not the time for talk. The monsters are already breaking through the barrier and coming in to attack them. Bernard begins using a powerful defensive skill called Barrier of Perma to fend off the initial attack from the monsters. While Bernard is fighting, he asks Kalium to quickly support his team, which angers Kalium further. He hadn't wanted things to escalate to this degree. Kalium begins feeling frustrated and angry because he aimed to finish this mission quietly, but realizes he must intervene now. Kalium asks Bernard to follow his instructions for a while, but Bernard refuses sharply, demanding to know why. Kalium explains with great anger that Bernard and his group are the ones who brought the monsters and caused this tremendous chaos. Kalium feels tense and begins realizing his plan has completely changed, especially since they can't easily escape in this situation. Kalium decides to use a powerful scroll he possesses and casts a special spell called Eternal Rest to protect the jar containing Back Attack's soul. He asks Urinal to get ready quickly to catch the jar while he guides it to her using his magical ability. Meanwhile, the arguments and tensions between the two teams continue, especially with the other adventurers' dissatisfaction with Bernard's actions and his incompetence in leading the team. Kalium challenges Bernard directly, pointing out his direct frontal assault strategy failed catastrophically and caused the loss of one of his group members, which makes Bernard rethink his future options. Bernard's team becomes flustered and confirms with concern that one of their team members died just moments ago, which proves Kalium's suspicions about the dangerous situation were absolutely correct. Kalium quickly reassures them and tells them if they follow his instructions, he promises to revive their companion and successfully complete the mission, which surprises and interests the team. But first, he asks them to look behind them to confirm his words. He explains souls are automatically stored in jars if someone dies between the labyrinth floors. Urinal confirms this and points to another glowing jar that appeared moments ago in addition to Back Attack's jar, which confirms the death of the new adventurer. The team is shocked when they realize the new jar belongs to their dead companion Astan. But Kalium reassures them he'll revive him immediately in this area. He adds the matter of payment will be arranged fairly later at the church, which makes the team feel relieved and hopeful about saving their companion. The team decides to follow Kalium's instructions immediately, now fully convinced of his sincerity. They explain their combat abilities and special skills to him so he can coordinate the plan with them. They urgently ask Kalium to help them save their companion. Kalium smiles and says he understands their request very well. Suddenly, the monsters begin breaking through the barrier and the door. Everyone realizes the fight has begun and they must move quickly. The team stands in a ready stance for battle, and Kalium declares with great pride and confidence it's time to begin this decisive battle. Bernard's mind drifts back to the moment when the bishop of Nathaniel's church summoned him. The memory comes sharp and vivid, as if it just happened. The bishop said with a solemn tone he would give Bernard a crucial mission from the religious order. Bernard bowed respectfully, requesting instruction. The bishop declared he must enter the labyrinth immediately and confirm whether the rumored soul preservation is true. The religious order will spare no support, but there must be no failure. Bernard replied with determination he would keep those words in mind. Now in the present, Bernard grits his teeth, his body tense. He wonders why Nathaniel gives him such a difficult trial. His barrier spell trembles under the relentless strikes of the sentries outside. Cracks are already forming across its shimmering surface. Meanwhile, Kalium carefully observes the situation, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. He thinks grimly that a frontal assault is numerically disadvantageous, but if they keep holding out here, that thing will come. Kalium turns swiftly to the others and shouts for Amos, Bernard, and the barbarian to stack the display cabinets behind him. They'll climb up from there. Then he addresses Urinal and Ramiz, telling them to take care of the soul caskets as well. They reply in unison before rushing to secure the fragile relics. Moments later, Amos calls out that they've moved everything. Kalium confirms good and tells everyone to stand back. He's breaking through the roof. He focuses his energy, prepares his spell, and casts Dust Explosion with a roaring blast. The roof above them cracks and shatters, leaving a massive hole. Kalium orders everyone to climb up to the roof and hurry. Urinal and Ramiz are first to climb, soul caskets secured carefully in one hand. Behind them, the barbarian ascends, carrying Back Attack's unconscious body slung over his shoulder. Kalium turns to Bernard and Amos, telling them to go up too. But just as they're about to climb, the barrier spell finally gives way. The door bursts open, crashing to the ground. The black-capped sentries storm in, swords gleaming as they rush forward. Seeing the threat, Amos and Bernard immediately turn to face them. Amos shouts for Kalium to go up first, they'll buy him time. Bernard raises his shield and activates Guardian Shield skill, the impact sending the first wave of sentries flying backward. At the same time, Amos strikes with his weapon, his blows so powerful several sentries get knocked into each other, collapsing in tangled heaps. For a brief moment, they manage to hold the line, but more and more sentries flood into the room. In just minutes, the place is overflowing with enemies. From above, Kalium clenches his fists as he watches, thinking they won't be able to hold out for long. He shouts for Amos and Bernard not to go too far forward and to fall back. Bernard shouts back confused, asking why. Kalium's expression darkens as he explains because that thing is coming now. A massive hand suddenly grips the entrance wall, stone crumbling beneath its weight. A towering figure steps into the room. Bernard's eyes widen in horror, demanding to know what that monster is. Kalium says grimly it's the sanctuary manager. The sanctuary manager raises its staff, casting a strange spell. The fallen sentries around it begin to stir, wounds sealing instantly as they rise again, stronger than before. Kaliam's thoughts race. It's not impossible to defeat the manager, but the problem is it can continuously heal all the sentries with undead magic. He turns to the barbarian, telling him to go down and help, just fight to buy time. The barbarian grins fiercely, saying buying time sounds perfect, he'll leave it to him. He leaps down without hesitation, swinging his weapon with destructive force. Urinal says she'll go too as she approaches Kaliam, her bow at the ready. Kaliam warns her to be careful. She replies firmly she understands. Ramiz calls out, asking her to please succeed. He's counting on her. She gives him a determined nod, confirming she'll do her best. Kaliam watches her go, his thoughts heavy, thinking everything depends on Urinal now. The success of this operation rests entirely in her hands. Then he addresses the group, his tone sharp and commanding. He tells them to listen carefully. The sanctuary manager grants healing, enhancement, and aura magic to undead. Its stench also lowers resistance and causes a dazed state. They must keep their minds sharp at all times. Despite his warning, Bernard falters slightly, overwhelmed by the nauseating odor filling the room. The barbarian shouts while cutting down another sentry, demanding to know how many more he has to kill. But the sanctuary manager casts another wave of healing magic, restoring every fallen sentry once again. The barbarian's expression twists in frustration, realizing at this rate, this will never end. Just then, Bernard nearly freezes in place, his focus slipping. The barbarian notices instantly and lunges forward, blocking a sentry strike meant for Bernard. He roars for Bernard to snap out of it. They're nowhere near done, and he needs to concentrate. Bernard stammers an apology, admitting the stench got to him. Kaliam's jaw tightens as he asks if Bernard finally understands now how reckless a frontal assault was. They can't keep this up much longer. Is Urinal still not ready? Meanwhile, Amos continues to strike down sentries with relentless precision. Bernard glances at him in disbelief, wondering how he's unaffected by the stench. He asks aloud how Amos is enduring this. Amos doesn't even glance back, explaining on Dalai Mountain, his training was to silence all distractions, even the ones inside his mind. Suddenly, the sanctuary manager begins casting another healing spell. Kaliam barks to focus on the manager. Amos steps forward, gripping his weapon tightly. A fierce light blazes in his eyes as he unleashes his newly acquired skill, Smashing Gaia. With a single devastating strike, he obliterates several sentries at once, shaking the entire floor. The barbarian and Bernard freeze, stunned by his power. Bernard thinks in disbelief, wondering when Amos got that skill. One hit caused so much destruction. Is this really the same monk who wandered aimlessly on the first floor? At that moment, a bright flare streaks across the distant sky. Ramiz spots it instantly, telling Kaliam that's Urinal's signal. Kaliam's eyes light up, praising Urinal for succeeding. He orders everyone to fall back immediately. Meanwhile, far from the chaos, Urinal has just completed her mission. Beside her, Astan, who was just revived, slowly stirs. Urinal says urgently they need to move and tells him to hurry and get up. Astan blinks in confusion, his voice faint, asking who she is. Kaliam's mind races as chaos erupts around him. He thinks they who are above need to buy time now. Dust explosion doesn't have a wide blast range. Even with direct detonation, he can't immobilize all those sentries. There's only one way. Without hesitation, Kaliam raises his hand, summoning a surge of mana. 4 consecutive bursts of dust explosion erupt from his spell, striking the roof directly above the sanctuary manager and the surrounding sentries. The sudden detonations shake the entire structure. Remy's eyes widen in shock as cracks split across the ceiling. He realizes Kaliam is dropping debris on the manager and the sentries just to stop them. Chunks of stone and rubble rain down, burying several sentries and the sanctuary manager beneath the collapsing roof. Dust fills the air, obscuring everything in a thick gray cloud. Bernard stumbles back, startled by the impact, demanding to know what this is. Kalium shouts this is their chance and tells them to hurry up and climb. The barbarian grabs Bernard's arm, saying they should go up now too. Bernard nods, gripping his weapon tightly and confirming he understands. The barbarian should go first. Just as the barbarian begins climbing, one of the sentries suddenly bursts out from the swirling dust, charging straight at them with murderous intent. Bernard steps forward without hesitation, his sword flashing as he strikes the sentry down. He shouts for Amos to go up first, he'll hold them off. But Amos freezes, his thoughts dragged back into the past, to the memory of that one critical mistake when he abandoned his position, leaving a gap that led to a deadly back attack. He grits his teeth, his knuckles tightening around his weapon. He growls that no, not this time he won't run away, leaving his companions behind ever again. With a roar, Amos steps forward, his blade carving through the incoming sentries. He tells them to go ahead, he'll hold the line. Bernard meets his gaze and nods firmly, acknowledging if that's his will, he understands. Amos is the best frontliner he's ever seen. Without another word, Bernard begins climbing. Amos stands firm, blocking wave after wave of attacking sentries. But then, bright streaks of light suddenly rain down the strikes of Kalium's magic, slamming into the enemies around him. Kalium shouts from above for Amos to come up now, they'll cover him. Just as Amos prepares to retreat, the rubble behind him shifts violently. From beneath the debris, the sanctuary manager rises, his figure battered but unbroken, his eyes burning with fury. Kalium's expression hardens instantly, announcing the manager is up again and the sentries will charge. He tells Amos he needs to move. Elsewhere, Astan is staggering through the halls, struggling to keep up with Urinal, who's rushing back toward Kalium's group. Astan wheezes, asking her to slow down and holding his chest. Urinal barks back there's no time, not slowing her pace. Astan shot back, his voice cracking in frustration, saying he just died and came back to life. Urinal glances over his shoulder briefly, confused, asking what he's talking about. She healed him, didn't she? Astan snaps, demanding if that makes him completely recovered. Urinal frowns but keeps running, explaining if they don't hurry, their entire party will be wiped out. Astan grits his teeth, saying fine but to just guide him properly. Back at the rooftop, Kalium's party is desperately giving cover fire while Amos climbs. Bernard yells from above there's no time and tells him to extend the iron rod. Amos immediately triggers the mechanism on his weapon, lengthening the iron rod. Bernard grabs hold of it and starts pulling him up with all his strength, while Kalium and Ramiz unleash volleys of attacks to hold off the approaching sentries. Bernard reaches down further, grasping Amos' arm and hauling him upward. But suddenly, a cold sensation crawls up Amos' leg. He wonders why his ankle feels cold and glances down, freezing in shock. The sanctuary manager has scaled the debris and is clutching his ankle, his face twisted into a sinister, almost mocking smile. Ramiz shouts they're almost there and fires an arrow, telling the manager to take this and get lost. The arrow shoots through the air with deadly speed, only for the sanctuary manager to catch it with his mouth, his teeth crunching through the shaft. Ramiz gasps, his voice trembling, demanding to know what the hell that monster is. Bernard shouts for Amos to hang on, his arms straining as he tries to pull him up, insisting it's almost done and just a little more. But Amos' grip falters, his body trembling violently. He admits he can't hold on, his arms are giving out. Bernard roars, his voice raw with desperation, insisting Amos can't let go. He'll save him and swears it. Amos shakes his head weakly, saying it's too late, he's fine, and they should just run and save themselves. Kalium orders sharply, his voice slicing through the panic, telling him to use the dagger. In that instant, a blade streaks downward, glinting in the light. A magic throwing knife hurled with perfect precision tears through the air and strikes the sanctuary manager right in the forehead. The monster's grip loosens instantly. His body falls backward, crashing violently to the floor below. Bernard wastes no time, pulling Amos up the rest of the way. Kalium says, his voice steady but filled with relief, that Amos worked hard and should take a breath and say hello. At that moment, a cold, familiar voice states simply, "Hey, Mr." Amos freezes. Standing there is Back Attack with his soul revived. Amos' breath catches in his throat as his eyes lock onto the figure standing before him. Back Attack is alive and normal, as though he never died in the first place. Amos freezes, unable to believe what he's seeing, but Back Attack looks just as confused, glancing around wildly and gripping the dagger he just threw. He mutters he doesn't understand any of this. Kalium said use the dagger, so he just threw it on instinct, but where the hell are they? He asks his big brother who these people are. Amos doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Instead, he rushes forward and wraps Back Attack in a crushing embrace, whispering thank goodness he's back. Back Attack coughs, squirming in his brother's arms, complaining he can't breathe and his bones are going to break. At that moment, Urinal and Astan finally climb up to the top of the wall, a little ways off from Kalium's group. Urinal shouts, raising a hand, announcing they've arrived. Bernard, the barbarian, and Ramiz, the rest of the party, turn instantly toward the voice. Their faces light up with relief as they see Astan alive and standing. The barbarian says, his voice cracking as tears well in his eyes, calling Astan an idiot and saying he's glad he made it back alive. Astan frowns, though his shoulders tremble slightly, demanding to know what they were standing around for instead of running, calling them stupid fools. Before anyone can reply, Kalium's sharp voice cuts through the reunion. He says firmly, his expression cold and focused, that all right, that's enough. He appreciates the joy of reunion, but this isn't over yet. He turns his gaze toward Urinal and raises a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. He tells her, especially if she's trying to pull the guard's aggro, to zip it now. Urinal immediately stiffens, apologizing. Kalium nods, saying good he's about to relay the plan, so they should listen carefully. He tells Urinal to pass this information to Astan, please. She confirms she's got it. Kalium begins explaining, his tone steady but urgent. It's a 7-meter drop from the cathedral roof to the ground. The escape gate is roughly 30 meters from here. Jumping from the roof is suicide. Any clumsy monk or lizard would definitely sprain their ankle, and he's not risking his either. While Kalium speaks, Urinal immediately begins relaying the details to Astan in hushed tones. Kalium continues, explaining there's also a risk of injury, and the guards will surround them instantly if they jump. No good, they need to incapacitate the guards and the administrator first, then make a dash for the gate. To do that, they need to cast one big spell, but it'll take time. Until then, they hold this rooftop. Whoever comes up here, they handle them. Just as he finishes speaking, a sentry climbs over the roof's edge with a roar. The barbarian reacts instantly, swinging his axe in a wide arc and cutting the soldier down before he can reach the party. More sentries begin climbing up behind him. The barbarian grimaces, thinking they don't have much choice. But Kalium raises a hand, saying not yet. He's got other tasks for the barbarian later, so he should conserve his strength. They'll leave the rooftop defense to Back Attack and Bernard. Bernard nods immediately, confirming he understands. Back Attack, however, crosses his arms, saying sorry, but the party leader isn't Kalium. The entire group snaps their heads toward him. The others shout in unison, telling him to listen and just hear him out. Back Attack blinks, scratching the back of his head awkwardly, questioning what they mean. He says fine and agrees sheepishly. Amos approaches him, resting a hand on his shoulder, explaining right now, Kalium's their leader and he should trust him. Ramiz, still loosing arrows, glances at Kalium and asks if he even has a way to subdue all of them. Kalium smirks faintly, his eyes narrowing. He explains he'll use a large-scale lightning spell to hold them in place. Then they'll make a break for the gate in the opening. He turns to Urinal, telling her to hide near the gate with Astan. When he gives the signal, she should act. Urinal quickly relays the next part to Astan, explaining once Kalium summons the rain clouds, they're supposed to surround the cathedral with a mud wall spell. She asks if he's got it. Astan nods, and the two begin making their way toward the gate's vicinity. Kalium mutters under his breath, gripping his staff tightly, asking himself if he's ready to start. He glances down at the sanctuary manager and the sentries still gathering below. He thinks the administrator's clever. He's not recklessly storming the roof or trying to destroy it. He's sealing them in, enclosing the cathedral so they can't escape. A thin, confident smile touches Kalium's lips. But what's coming next is beyond anything the manager could have prepared for. Kalium raises his staff, chanting the invocation rainstorm clouds. A system notification flickers before his eyes, confirming skill activated. The effect calls forth torrential rain clouds over a designated area. Cooldown is 15 seconds. Duration is 30 seconds. Additional effect every 3 seconds. Any target hit by lightning will be struck again. Kalium casts the spell 3 more times consecutively, 4 layers of storm magic in total. Another notification appears confirming all action points expended. He smirks faintly, thinking 4 will do for now. With the rainstorm in place, they'll use the mud wall to trap the water so it doesn't overflow. Without hesitation, Kalium flips the temporary hourglass item, activating it. The system confirms temporary hourglass special ability unlocked bloodlust momentum. Its effect freezes time for 60 seconds during this turn. Kalium exhales slowly, feeling the rush of frozen time wash over him. He whispers perfect and begins another rapid chain cast of rainstorm clouds, since they pre-cast before activating the hourglass, and with this time freeze, they can stack a total of 7 storms. A massive black cloud materializes above the cathedral, swirling ominously over the sanctuary manager and the sentries. Torrential rain begins to fall, drenching the courtyard below. Kalium's party stares wide-eyed. Bernard mutters, questioning what this is, a sudden massive rain cloud. Kalium doesn't answer. Instead, he raises his staff one final time, lightning crackling around the tip. He casts lightning shock. A blinding bolt erupts from the storm clouds above, crashing down onto the sanctuary manager and the gathered sentries. The air shakes with the roar of thunder. The clouds above the cathedral swell unnaturally, dark and heavy, until the entire sky seems on the verge of collapsing. Far below, Astan gazes up from a distance, his eyes widening in disbelief. He questions what's happening, that much cloud density. Is this even possible? Before he can finish, a deafening crack splits the air as a blinding bolt of lightning rips down from the heavens, striking the ground with terrifying force. The earth trembles under the power of Kalium's spell. Urinal, standing beside him, urgently calls out for Astan to cast his earth wall magic now. Astan snaps out of his shock and nods, confirming all right. Yet, as he channels his energy, his thoughts swirl. A first-floor mage handling magic on this scale. The rumors must be true, the silent casting genius mage. It's really him. He thrusts his hands forward, and the ground responds. With a low rumble, a massive earthen wall erupts from the soil, encircling the cathedral in a towering barrier. Astan says breathlessly he did it because Kalium told him to, but asks what now. Urinal answers quickly, explaining she heard the barbarian will cross over first. Astan blinks confused, asking cross over where and what she means. Before he can finish, a shadow drops from above. The barbarian warrior leaps from the cathedral roof, soaring through the air like a beast of raw muscle and landing powerfully beside Astan and Urinal. The ground cracks beneath his feet. Astan nearly stumbles backward, stunned. Up on the roof, Kalium glances down and smirks, noting the barbarian landed cleanly. He turns to Amos, telling him as explained, he's next. Amos replies yes, confirming he understands and setting aside his weapon and bag. He'll do his best. Kalium shifts his gaze to Bernard, telling him to use Power of Radiance on Amos. Bernard nods and immediately casts the strengthening spell. A warm light envelops Amos, his muscles tensing with newfound strength. Feeling the surge, Amos grins and turns toward Ramiz, saying they should start now. Ramiz begins asking to wait and give him a moment to prepare his heart. But before he can finish, Amos grabs him and hurls him off the roof with colossal force. Ramiz screams, flailing through the air, but the barbarian below catches him safely. Bernard steps forward next, giving Amos a firm nod and saying he's counting on him too. Amos wastes no time, grabbing Bernard and launching him skyward. The barbarian braces and catches him as well, landing him safely. Kalium hands Amos several packed bags, asking him to please take care of these too. One by one, the supplies fly through the air, each caught neatly by the barbarian's hulking arms. Meanwhile, Bakatak, who had been silently observing the magic above, finally speaks up. He has a question if Kalium's spells that powerful. Couldn't he have just crushed those monsters from the start? Kalium shakes his head calmly, explaining the sentries. Maybe, but the manager? He wouldn't even flinch. He tells Bakatak to listen carefully and asks if he's noticed those heavy thud-thud sounds. Bakatak frowns confused. Kalium explains that's the sanctuary manager trying to break through the earth wall and escape. If he gets out, the sentries will revive endlessly. That's why they need to leave now. The wall won't last, and the spell's duration is limited. There's no time to relax. Kalium glances at Amos, explaining after he crosses over, Amos and Bakatak should use Shadow Leap immediately. Amos confirms he understands and steps forward, lifting Kalium onto his shoulder. Kalium hesitates briefly, glancing at the ground far below. He admits this is scarier than he thought, but tells Amos to please throw him well. With a mighty swing, Amos hurls Kalium through the air. The barbarian bellows from below, slamming a hand against his broad chest and telling Kalium to come to him. He'll catch him with this. Kalium grimaces mid-air, thinking honestly, that's even scarier. Kalium lands safely thanks to the barbarian's iron grip. Urinal rushes to his side, praising it as a perfect plan and saying they'll be out of here soon. Kalium nods but glances back at the rooftop, clarifying not yet. They need Amos and Bakatak to make it out too. Meanwhile, atop the cathedral, Bakatak turns to his brother, asking where he found a mage like this. Seriously, there's so much he wants to ask, but they should move first, right? Amos stops him, his expression unusually serious. He tells Bakatak when they get out of here, he should join Kalium's party. Bakatak frowns. Amos continues, explaining with Bakatak's history as an exit boss, most parties won't accept him. That mark from the Labyrinth Master is still on his forehead, but Kalium will take him in unlike the others. Bakatak hesitates, blinking at him, then says all right, he gets it. But they need to move, don't they? Amos says yes firmly. That's why he's telling him now he's joining Kalium's party. Bakatak scratches his cheek, muttering this uncle's acting weird today. Is he getting old or something? Amos commands they should go. Bakatak activates Shadow Leap, and in the next instant, both brothers appear beside the others. The barbarian roars, his booming voice shaking the air, announcing they're back. Amos and Bakatak have returned. Kalium allows himself a brief smile, confirming everyone's accounted for. The escape is complete. But just then, the earth wall cracks loudly, fragments crumbling away. Kalium glances at it sharply, noting the duration's over. He waves his hand, saying it doesn't matter anymore. He tells everyone to hurry through the gate. The entire group bolts, sprinting across the clearing and bursting through the cathedral's escape gate. Urinal shouts they did it, her voice filled with elation. Ramiz lets out a relieved laugh, saying to think they actually escaped from that hell. The barbarian claps Astan on the back hard enough to make him stumble, saying they even got Astan back. Astan smirks faintly, admitting he only caught the ending, but that young mage friend of theirs is something else. He thanks Kalium, saying he's alive because of him. Ramiz nods in agreement, confirming this wouldn't have been possible without Kalium. Bernard, standing off to the side, silently thinks the same. He reflects Kalium is incredible just from a quick assessment of their skills. He crafted an impossible escape plan. The mission from the Order was successful. Soul preservation has been proven. Astan's revival is undeniable proof. His expression darkens as he continues thinking. But in truth, this wasn't their accomplishment. Without Kalium, they all would have died. He thought Nathaniel guided them to Kalium to save them, but no, it was to teach him humility, to know his own inadequacy. His thoughts are cut short when Amos suddenly collapses, clutching his leg in pain. Back Attack shouts, rushing to his side and demanding to know what's wrong. Amos groans, tearing away the bandage around his leg. Everyone freezes when they see it, a deep gaping wound where a spell struck, leaving a smoldering hole. Kalium's eyes widen in shock, demanding to know what this is. Kalium's mind races as he looks at Amos, pale and trembling on the ground. He wonders when Amos got hit by a decay ray. There was no way he could have missed it unless it happened during the chaos. A system window flickers before Kalium's eyes, revealing the cruel truth. Decay ray 3rd grade necromancy. A curse that causes the target's heart to decay after a set period, leading inevitably to death. Amos, breathing heavily, finally explains, "It was when that manager was holding his legs when he was resisting." Kalium's eyes widen, asking if that's when it hit him and demanding to know why he didn't say something sooner. Amos gives a faint bitter smile, asking would it have made any difference if he had. Back Attack, who had been standing nearby, barks that he shouldn't be ridiculous, he ran just fine on the rooftop earlier. Amos replies softly, though his voice carries the weight of exhaustion, that he felt like he could run. Remiz turns quickly to Bernard, telling him he's a paladin and demanding he do something. Bernard shakes his head grimly, explaining this curse is beyond his power to heal. A heavy silence falls as Amos looks at Kalium, his voice suddenly frail. He has one request: please deliver this talisman to his wife. Tell her he promised he'd come back and that he's sorry he couldn't keep that promise. He reaches out with a trembling hand, clutching the small charm. But before he can place it in Kalium's palm, his strength fails him. The talisman slips from his fingers and falls to the ground with a dull clink. Kalium catches his friend, his face tightening with frustration and fear, calling out Amos' name. Urinal kneels beside them, her voice trembling, saying his heartbeat's getting weaker. Bernard lowers his head and begins to pray, asking Lord Nathaniel to please guide this soul to his side. But Kalium's mind refuses to accept it. He thinks no, not yet, Amos isn't dead. He won't let him die like this. Then he remembers the looters from earlier, the reliquaries, the cathedral's strange mechanism for soul preservation. A memory flashes in his mind, the person who died on floor 1.5. Their soul was stored within the cathedral itself. There's still a chance. Kalium scoops Amos into his arms and barks for Back Attack to come with him now. Without another word, he sprints toward the gate. Bernard shouts after him, demanding to know what he's doing. But Kalium doesn't answer. There's no time. He rushes through the gate and emerges on floor 1.5, heart pounding. He sighs in relief when he sees Amos is still breathing, but his relief is short-lived. Ahead, standing in the misty corridor, the sanctuary manager and a group of sentries wait. Kalium's expression hardens. They were lying in wait, sentries deployed all the way to the gate. Then, in his arms, Amos' breathing stops. A soft green glow drifts out of his chest, his soul drawn toward the reliquary deep within the cathedral. Kalium's gaze follows the glow, thinking that's it, that's where they're keeping his soul. Just then, Urinal and Back Attack emerge from the gate behind him. Urinal readies her bow, telling Kalium she'll cover him. Back Attack, gripping his daggers tightly, asks if he even has a plan. Kalium's eyes lock on the cathedral, declaring they're getting Amos' reliquary back, that's the plan. Back Attack begins saying he'll use his skill. Kalium snaps no, telling him not yet and to stand by. The sentries charge forward. Kalium knows he needs time, just 13 seconds until the cooldown on his dungeon hourglass ends. He raises his hand and casts Dust Explosion, obliterating several sentries in a blinding blast. An arrow from Urinal's bow strikes another. Back attack's dagger flashes, cutting down a second. Kalium follows up with a surge of lightning shock, the air crackling as bolts scorch the ground. 9 seconds left. Time crawls. He wonders if they can hold out. At that moment, Bernard's party bursts through the gate, weapons drawn. Bernard calls out, saying until Lord Nathaniel rewards Kalium for this, he won't let him die. Kalium smirks faintly, thinking for once, he's glad this talkative lizard is here. With Bernard's party holding the sentries back, Kalium sets his plan into motion. He shouts for back attack when he gives the signal. He should use leap ambush on the manager, steal the staff, and shadow leap back here. Back attack hesitates, but Kalium cuts him off sharply, telling him the success rate on this is high and to trust him. He orders him to just get ready. He raises his telekinesis wand, his eyes locking onto the reliquary glowing within the cathedral. Slowly, carefully, he begins pulling it toward himself, his action points draining with each passing second. He thinks Amos has saved them countless times, now it's his turn. He tells Amos to hold on because he won't let him die. The reliquary floats into his hands. He commands Urinal to fire a lightning arrow now. Urinal's bow thrums, unleashing a blinding arrow of pure electricity. The bolt streaks through the air and strikes the sanctuary manager, sending a scream of pain echoing through the chamber. Kalium shouts for back attack to go. In an instant, back attack vanishes, leaping across space to appear behind the manager. His dagger flashes, his hand darting forward, and he tears the staff free from the manager's grasp. Using Shadow Leap, he reappears safely by Kalium's side, panting but grinning. Kalium yells he got it and orders everyone to fall back now. The group sprints back through the gate, exiting the floor in a single desperate rush. Outside, they collapse against the stone walls, catching their breath. Kalium glances around, his voice steady despite the exhaustion, asking just to be sure if anyone else is carrying some weird critical injury or curse. The others shake their heads, confirming they're fine. Bernard steps forward, asking what now. They don't have the resurrection scroll should he fetch one from the temple. They can perform the ritual outside the labyrinth. Kalium shakes his head, his lips curling into a confident smile. He says no, there's a better way. They got plenty more where that came from.